behind me, then something happens and it all comes back with a rush. And I was out at the Lexington airport the morning. I had a 6:05 flight, and the 6 o'clock flight left. And by all rights, I'd always been on Delta Airlines. This morning I was going someplace else and was on another airline, and I checked in with all these people, and the plane crashed and killed everyone. And I had to go again. All those feelings came back, all those faces came back, all those nightmares came back, and you just have to keep redealing with it.
Well, Alan Ault, I thank you for sharing your experience with us. Thanks for being on Hard Talk.
Thank you.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Saroja Coelho. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and we are live in Morden, Manitoba this morning. In fact, all week long, we're going to be in Morden. We have a live show in Winkler. This is part of CBC Manitoba's Communities in Focus initiative, where we go to communities and we ask them what stories we should share. And we've got some wonderful stories out of Morden for you this morning. So thanks so much for joining us. 3 minutes to 6, as I mentioned, I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, especially out in these parts. Minus 6 in Winnipeg, minus 5 right now in Morden. The morning show's on till 8:37 a.m. and should be pretty good out there. It's kind of a mixed bag on the highways, mostly wet, but you could see some pockets of snow here or there for sure. So let's say good morning to the team. We have Abby Adeyemi on weather. Corey Funk is directing the show here, and we'll be covering the traffic situation. Prabjot Lote is out here shooting our show for us that you're watching on YouTube. The YouTube producer is Kevin Nipatebo, and let's go to Heather Wells right now, who's in our news center with morning headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, relief and vindication. Those are some of the emotions Sandra Delaron says she felt after hearing news a second set of remains discovered at Prairie Green Landfill had been identified. The advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women says she hopes the finding will help the family as they move forward. Manitoba's finance minister says the NDP government is doing its part to fund education, but taxpayers in Winnipeg face double-digit increases in school taxes in some divisions. Adrian Sala says his budget later this week is going to have a big focus on education spending. So we'll hear more about that in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
So, of course, Heather will be with us throughout the morning, and news anytime developing online at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, in Morden today, I can tell you there's going to be a high of 2 degrees. A lot of people talking about melting out these parts. They're also talking about growing. In the first hour of the show, we are going to talk to Morden's first ever woman mayor. She is here live. She is Nancy Penner, and she was elected just over a year ago. So we're going to hear more from her about how the community is growing and changing. And so that's coming up. Also in the first hour of the show, we're going to hear a little bit more about the thriving art scene here in Morden. If you go down Stevens Street, it is just about the hippest little street in a southern Manitoba community you've ever been down. And we're going to find out more about that. Stay tuned, though. World Report is first.
42, Europe. Soldiers find a boy surviving alone in the woods. They make him a member of Hitler's army. But what no one would know for decades, he was Jewish. Could a story so unbelievable be true? I'm Dan Goldberg, and from CBC's Personally, Toy Soldier.
Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is shattered. Israel carried out widespread attacks across Gaza overnight. Palestinian health officials say more than 400 Palestinians have been killed. Close to 700 others are injured. Israel says it launched the attacks because Hamas refused to extend the ceasefire and release its hostages. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing is in Jerusalem with the latest.
Wrapped bodies are piled up together in Gaza City. Overhead, the hum of Israeli surveillance drones. We were sleeping, then suddenly woke up on the strike, says Mohammed Badir. He helped pull his neighbors' bodies from the rubble. Realizing he had not seen his own daughter, they went searching. Her body was also recovered. The renewed attacks come as Israel continues to pressure Hamas to agree to an extension to phase 1 of the ceasefire and release more hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Hamas has been holding out to move ahead with phase 2 of talks, as both sides had previously agreed. Danny Danon is Israel's UN ambassador.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home.
Israel released images of its top military and security leaders watching the largest wave of strikes on Gaza in roughly 2 months from the Air Force headquarters in Tel Aviv. Hamas says the strikes expose Israel's true intentions to, quote, spill the blood of innocent civilians, with one official saying the return of war amounts to a death sentence for the remaining hostages. On the ground in Han Yunis, the director of Gaza hospitals pleads for international help. No aid, including fuel, medicine, and equipment, has been allowed to enter Gaza in weeks, making saving the scores of injured people, including children, even harder. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are supposed to speak on the phone this morning. The U.S. president is expected to pressure his Russian counterpart to agree to the proposed ceasefire in Ukraine. Trump says there is already some agreement on issues such as territory concessions and the control of a nuclear power plant. But there is more work to be done. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Putin is stalling in order to keep the war going. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada will stand up for its sovereignty. Now he's headed to the Arctic to make that point. Carney is back from his first foreign trip as Prime Minister. He met with allies in Britain and France. Today, he will travel to Iqaluit for talks with Inuit leaders. As Juanita Taylor reports, Arctic security is a key focus of their meetings.
On his first week, that really shows that Arctic security is very vital.
Jeremy Tunraluk, the newly elected president at Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated, representing Nunavut Inuit, is pleased he will be meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney today in Iqaluit.
It is very important that the Prime Minister knows we're in the front lines of making sure that we're helping Inuit to thrive.
Carney is set to make an announcement on strengthening Canada's sovereignty and security. Inuit Tapari Kanatami President Natan Obid and Nunavut Premier PJ Akeruk will also be there. Earlier this month, Akeruk attended the federal unveiling of the location of 3 military hubs, including Iqaluit, where he said he's glad there's more attention being made to the Arctic, but
time is running out, and our geopolitical landscape is shifting rapidly with more attention towards the circumpolar world. Considering the jabs about Canada as a 51st state, it is even more urgent for our country to reinforce our presence in the Arctic.
Retired Colonel Pierre LeBlanc is the president of Arctic Security Consultants in Ottawa, advocating for increased security in the north.
So it's important that he does come to Iqaluit because it will be seen by others as a visit by the Prime Minister to the Arctic.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh were also recently in Iqaluit to tout Arctic sovereignty and security. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A federal election call could be just days away, but so far, no political party has managed to find candidates for all 343 ridings. Since Mark Carney became Prime Minister, the Liberals have seen a boost in the polls. But as Rafi Boudjikanian tells us, they still have a long list of ridings with no Liberal candidate.
We're going to be calling an early election. Prime Minister Mark Carney just after being sworn in, as close as he's come to admitting ballot boxes are in the near future for Canadians.
They certainly should expect to go to the polls before November.
His answer drawing chuckles and smiles from the cabinet ministers standing behind him. The Liberals have received a shot in the arm since it looked like Carney was going to win the leadership race, bouncing in opinion polls from what looked like a sure loss to neck and neck with the Conservatives. But they're still far behind in nominating candidates, 178 ready to go, out of a total 343.
Many MPs before the Liberal leadership contest and before the resignation of Mr. Trudeau were clearly dissatisfied.
Christine de Clercy is a political scientist at Trent University.
It's difficult to recruit candidates when you're not sure if the incumbent is leaving or not.
Since Carney became leader, the party has nominated more than a dozen candidates. Some incumbents who had previously declared they would not run again have also changed their minds. But meanwhile, the Conservatives have at least 258 candidates signed up. Melanie Thomas teaches political science at the University of Calgary.
They've been agitating for an election for months. So I wouldn't be surprised that that kind of organization.
All parties say they will have a full slate for the election. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
New Brunswick Liberals will table their first budget since winning the election, but the trade war with the United States has thrown Premier Susan Holt's fiscal agenda into chaos. One of her main campaign promises was to fix the province's healthcare system, but operating and personnel costs are soaring. The government has projected a nearly $400 million deficit for the current fiscal year. Seafood industry reps from more than 50 countries are showcasing their products in Boston, and this year, the stakes are high for Canada's seafood sellers. They face tariffs from both the United States and China, and the Seafood Expo will give Canadian producers a chance to explore new markets. Leila Baudouin reports.
A hot dog made from trout, robotic processing technology, just a sample of the thousands of exhibits as seafood industry reps show off their products and make deals.
It goes mainly to Spanish or Portuguese neighborhoods in the U.S. and in the Caribbean.
That's Quint Wickens of Sea Star Seafoods out of Nova Scotia. He produces and packages salt fish for companies around the world. But for Wickens, like many of the Canadian companies here, America, until now, has been his best customer.
Dominican Republic or Barbados or Trinidad, they become more important, with the uncertainty here in the U.S.
Wickens says he's on shaky ground, but hopeful Atlantic Canada's plan to diversify will work. And he's already in talks with new markets. So is Juan Roberts of Triton, Newfoundland.
There's other places in the world that buy what we grow, so we'll get there eventually. It just might take a bit of time.
Roberts was the first person to serve up farmed oysters in Newfoundland, a highly coveted product in the U.S. But he says they're looking further. A way forward, says Newfoundland and Labrador's Minister of Fisheries, Jerry Byrne.
We have had success in developing new markets in different continents.
But it's not out of rough waters yet. Canada, a country of coastlines, this will be a very different fishing season. Leila Baudouin, CBC News, Boston.
After being stranded on the International Space Station for months, 2 NASA astronauts are finally on their way back to Earth.
Step 2, ISS thrusters are verified enabled. To Crew 9, safe journey home. It's been the honor of a lifetime to cross your path up here on Space Station. We'll miss you, but have a great journey home.
Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore getting a fond farewell as a SpaceX Dragon capsule undocked early this morning. They were originally only supposed to spend a week on board the ISS, but Boeing's Starliner capsule failed back in June 2024, and the astronauts spent an extra 9 months in space. Their ride back to Earth today will take about 17 hours to complete, and if everything goes according to plan, they will splash down off the coast of Florida at about 6 p.m. local time. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Wanted an old house, and Morden fit the bill. So we've fixed up and renovated many old houses, many old commercial buildings, and we just love the atmosphere and The people are great, and the size of the community is awesome.
And you run an antique store, so you must be like a history guy.
I am. I love history. I love modern history especially. We've researched a lot of the old buildings in town that we've owned or renovated and lived in. We live in one of the stone houses down the street, and we're now in another historical building here today. Hi, my name is Bevan Weeb. I'm the owner of Stephen Street General, downtown Morden. You're listening to Information Radio, live from Morden on CBC Radio 1.
That is right. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here live from Morden, Manitoba. We are in the Pembina Valley this morning, about 1.5 hours southwest of Winnipeg. They called us the city of discovery, and not just the city of history, but we're going to hear more about that as well. The beautiful tree-lined city that punches above its weight when it comes to the number of manufacturers that are in this area and here in Morden as well. And that takes us to our location. I want to thank Decor Cabinets for having us on location today. We're actually up above the huge shop floor, and there's already workers milling away. So we're going to hear more this hour about Morden, about its growth trajectory, about what has brought people here, and about what keeps people here. Mayor Nancy Penner is going to join us this hour. Morden's on our location for Communities in Focus. This is CBC Manitoba's Information Radio, 89.3. 990 AM around these parts as well. So thank you so much for joining us on our special broadcast. Decor Cabinet, by the way, in the Industrial Park here in Morden. Also this hour, by the way, we're going to be hearing more about what's happening with the arts community here. You heard, about Stephen Street already, and that is a very special spot here in Morden. Coming up after the 6:30 news, we're going to be hearing a little bit more about how local artists are finding ways to connect in Morden, and also about what makes the art scene in this part of the province so unique. So we have a full hour ahead. Right now, though, speaking of news, let's go to Heather Wells, who's in our news center with your morning headlines for this Tuesday. Hi, Heather.
Hi there. Good morning. Well, people in Transcona vote in a by-election today. They are choosing their next MLA to replace Nello Altamar, the education minister who died in January. Now, 4 people are in the running. We'll hear who they are coming up. And the city of Winnipeg's largest union is filing a grievance after the mayor said he wants all staff back in the office full time. QP 500 President Gord Delbert says the city is already struggling to hire people, and this will just make it worse. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, Corey Funk is on location with me here, and I actually think before we turn to the weather forecast, Corey, why don't we do a little traffic? How are the highways out here?
I know they were a bit snowy coming in yesterday, but so far, at least on the drive-in around here, it wasn't too bad so far. Haven't heard of any major issues out there, but if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, it's the traffic was clear all the way in this morning. Give me a call, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks very much, Corey.
No problem.
By the way, I neglected to thank Leif Larson, who's in directing our program this morning as well, and he's actually going to be helping Corey cover traffic back in Winnipeg. That's where Abby Adiyemi is. Abby covering the weather. You know what I noticed, Abby? When everybody coming from Winnipeg that hasn't been out to southern Manitoba in a while is like, oh, you guys still have snow out here. So there's a lot more, grass showing in Winnipeg right now, I think. What's the forecast today?
Yeah, forecast across the province today. We're looking at cloudy conditions in some areas. We'll see a slim chance of flurries, and then it's going to be feeling a bit chilly in some regions also. Some light winds will come with that. Conditions for Winnipeg and surrounding area, we are at -5 at this point. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, talking about Morden, Winkler, Morris, Altona, all the way down to the U.S. border. We should be seeing mostly cloudy conditions today. That very slim chance of fluffy snow will be coming this morning, then some light winds. The region will be warming up to +2, so it's going to be a pretty mild day for this part of the province. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at -5.
Time right now is 6:15 on Information Radio on CBC. Well, Morden and Winkler are often called Manitoba's twin cities. You probably heard that before because they're about 10 minutes apart down the number 3 highway just here in southern Manitoba. But there's so much going on, and each city has its own distinct character. And so we're going to focus on both cities during our time here in the Pembina Valley. So Thursday we are live in Winkler, but today, as you've been hearing, it is all about Morden, a city of 10,000 people with a hip attitude where you might have had a cob of corn and an apple on a summer night. The mayor likes that. You might have visited the Fossil Discovery Center. You might have golfed in the beautiful course in this community, if you're a better golfer than I. And this community is very proud of its tree canopy. Just over a year ago, as I mentioned, Morden did elect its first ever woman as mayor. She's here now joining us at Decor Cabinets. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Pleased to be with you.
Thank you for having us in Morden.
Oh, our pleasure.
People might be wondering why it's so quiet at the cabinet shop, but it was so noisy on the floor. We're actually up in a boardroom overlooking the floor. This is a big new facility in the industrial park. You guys are punching above your weight in this part of Manitoba for the number of industries.
Oh, absolutely. We are proud to have so many diversity here. We say agriculture drives the economy, but manufacturing drives the employment here, and we're proud to have the diversity in manufacturing with farm equipment here with the cabinets, and we look at dry products with different manufacturing that's happening here. So
I pulled a stat, actually. The Prairies chapter, the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Group, sent some data to us, so give credit for them. They got it for us. There's about 80 manufacturing companies in this Winkler-Morden area, and it represents 5% of the total in Manitoba, but your population out here is 2%. So that's why I'm saying, like, per capita, you're punching way above your weight.
Yes.
Yeah. What else brings people here? I mentioned Corn Apple Festival, but what do you notice about what brings people to live in Morden and to visit Morden these days?
Well, tourism, like you mentioned, we have a beautiful golf course, and of course Morden's edged up against the Manitoba Escarpment, so we have elevation here. Our golf course is beautiful. Some of the the number 8 tee box and number 4, the elevation there you can see for miles. The Dead Horse Creek runs through the golf course, so it is a beautiful, I would say, number 1 golf course in Manitoba. I might be challenged on that. The Canadian Fossil Discovery Center holds the largest fossil collection of marine fossils in Canada. Of course, Corn and Apple Festival, it's the last festival in Manitoba, and in summertime we have a show and shine car that is held in the Morden Park. We call it the bowl there. All
kinds of different things.
Yeah.
And I was reading with Morden Corn and Apple, even though I've been over the years, of course, having grown up in Manitoba, the Morden Corn and Apple's like it says it's the largest street festival that we have in Manitoba. When you look, is it going back to the 60s? I think it's like tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, they say 80,000 come over the 3 days. They give out 80,000 free cobs of corn and little cups of apple cider, and it runs down the main street.
Let's get to some of the new things out here that might surprise people or bust some myths. You just went to your first breaking of the fast dinner. There's a brand new mosque that was just built here. That speaks to how your population's grown, right?
Yeah, we have... the Bangladesh community say they have the largest population outside Winnipeg living in Morden. With immigration, the diversity fabric of Morden is changing. So we are pleased to accommodate the different faith-based communities within our city. And in December, City Council had a conditional use hearing to change the use to institutional at a location so they could open the mosque, and they went under renovations in January, and they haven't had the official opening, but they are very pleased to have a place to pray for their community.
And I know Saturday night you were sharing with me when we were talking off air that you went to your first breaking of the fast iftar.
Yeah,
lovely.
And again on Friday I've been invited to one at the mosque. So.
What's your immigration strategy here? Because it's very focused. It's not just about numbers. I understand.
No, it is. It's very targeted, employment related, so very skill set, working with the employers. We have an immigration coordinator, Shelley Voth, that When we look at 100 applicants, the top maybe 5, 10, 15 will be targeted based on our needs within the employment communities.
Like,
So
you really want to keep people here and have
absolutely.
wraparound service
we
and have housing and think about everything.
Yes, and we have one of the highest retention rates within the within Manitoba for our immigrants. So even if they move to Winkler, we lose that retention, but we're up into the 85-90% retention
Wow.
for our immigrants.
What challenges does your growth bring, either in terms of housing or on infrastructure? I know you're dealing with a couple right now. We're going to do some deeper journalism
Yeah.
on these things, but what are some of the challenges?
Well, housing and our growth-related, infrastructure with wastewater and potable water. Those are just, growth. Those are challenges our city is dealing with right now.
Yeah. You even have, I think, like housing lots that are ready to go, but you're kind of saying just pause before we can figure everything out.
Yeah, we're kind of shut down because of our wastewater capacity is at maximum right now.
In terms of back to sort of some of the things that bring people here, I know it's not green outside right now, but everyone talks about the trees. You actually have a term. You say that Morden has a progressive tree policy. Like, I was driving around last night, all these beautiful these beautiful historic homes, and it seems like every neighborhood has like a park nearby, or you can see the trees overlooking. What's a progressive tree policy?
We have a Parks and Urban Forestry director, and we have a Parks and Urban Forestry plan, and tree planting is a big component of that. And we know that trees contribute to the health and welfare of the community, and climate control, and the benefit that trees
Good for us.
provide to the climate, whether they provide cooling in the summer and warmth in the winter, and wind protection. So we have a complete inventory of all the trees in our community, and we're looking at diverse plantings within neighborhoods.
I'll tell you what, I travel all over Manitoba. I've been to a lot of towns, and I haven't been to Morden in a while. It is like immediately noticeable when you go through and you start driving through the neighborhoods. Like,
Yes.
this is why we're talking
Yeah.
about it so much.
Every new community has boulevard plantings, so every neighborhood has a boulevard tree.
Just last, what do you want people to know about Morden in terms of either myths you want to bust, or why you would invite them to visit? You can take your pick of what you want to answer.
Well, we're a beautiful community. We're growing. We have both recreation. We have exceptional health care. We have, clinics here, community clinics, but we also have Boundary Trails Health Center that is just going through a $100 million expansion. So we do have that healthcare component to the community, but the employment opportunities are huge. We have bringing in post-secondary education at high levels in terms of IT, and the providing the LPN program through Assiniboine Community College. So we're retaining our young people here. And
Yeah,
they're
you are.
Yeah, so
We're going to hear more about that point coming up in the program, actually, when we take you to that hip Stephen Street in the next
Yes.
half hour. But we thank you for your time. I know you're on early because you're on the road to another community, actually,
Yeah.
busy rural mayors. Thank you very much for being with us and having us in your city.
No, my pleasure, and welcome to Morden, and thank you for taking an interest in both Morden and Winkler. And to bust a myth, I have to say regionally, our communities with Morden, Winkler, and Stanley, our Reeves and Mayors work very well together. So the old myth that Morden and Winkler are at loggerheads is a myth that I will bust.
Well, you're getting closer and closer together. The more
Yeah,
you both go.
I know.
I think you're 7K apart now up Highway 3. Nancy Pear with us this morning live at Decor Cabinet, the mayor of the city of Morden. Still ahead, we will hear more about the growing arts scene, as I mentioned. We're also going to find out how Decor Cabinet, our location today, is planning to weather the current economic stressors. So this is the longest I've gone in a show in a while without saying the word tariff, but we're going to get to that story as well. So stay with us.
The United States has been ripped off.
The stories that matter. Canada will be responding as they happen. We must put Canada first. At home and around the world.
We don't need the products that they have.
And what they mean to you. For news you can trust.
We're coming to you live.
Stay with CBC News.
6:24 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube this morning. So you might be watching live and you might see that we're not in Winnipeg. We're in the second floor boardroom overlooking the very busy and noisy, we'll hear that later, shop floor at Decor Cabinet. We're in the industrial park here in Morden, Manitoba, which is our broadcast location today. Well, next on the show, there is much anticipation today on a phone call, between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. They will be talking about a potential ceasefire in Russia's war on Ukraine and what it will take to make it happen. Little is known about the details of these negotiations between U.S. and Russia. Trump has said they're talking about, quote, dividing up assets, end quote, namely land and power plants. Now, Ukraine is not part of these talks, but it had agreed separately with the U.S. to a 30-day ceasefire. For her perspective, we are joined once again by Jeanne Dovich. She's a freelance journalist. She is in Kiev this morning. Hello.
Good morning.
So I want to get right to this dividing up assets. We hear these two leaders talking about this. What does that mean to you?
It's quite strange when someone is talking about Ukrainian territories as about assets, you know. So it's looks like it's not a geopolitical issue. It's not an issue of peace and war. It's looks like business negotiations. So of course, it's quite strange.
What has Ukraine said about its concerns about these U.S.-Russia talks?
Of course, we have many concerns that we are not taking part in these negotiations, and our European allies as well. This war is in Europe, so of course would be much better to have Ukraine and the European Union on these negotiations. But we have what we have. And Ukraine accepted the different proposals of United States as ceasefire for 30 days, as you told already. But we don't know any proposals or from Russian side, what do they accept? And Putin never talked about the ceasefire.
In terms of what Europe has said about supporting Ukraine, can you run us through that, through what your understanding of that is at this hour?
We know that as there are some conflicts inside of European Union with such states as Hungary, who is supporting Russia, they decided to create new fund to where different European countries can collect and send money to support Ukraine for military assistance. They can do it separately, and they hope to collect up to 40 billion euros for this military assistance.
I want to ask you before you go, Jeanne, I know that you traveled recently last week as Russia is making advances in the border area near northern Ukraine. You were in that region. What did you see there?
Yes, I was in Sumy region. It's neighboring region with Russian Kursk region, and we know that Ukraine kept this part of Kursk region since last summer, and so the main Russian advance is on their own territory. Ukrainian troops are leaving these territories, and but not fully, because there is 10-kilometer zone that is important to Ukraine to keep, to protect our own territories. So the main advance of Russian armies there, and they are not so successful in Donetsk region near Pokrovsk and Toretsk. And this operation in Kursk, it gave opportunity to Ukraine to build defense of other territories inside of Ukraine.
Appreciate your time, Jeanne. We'll have to see what happens with these talks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In Kiev this morning, Jandovich, a freelance journalist. Isn't technology amazing? She in Kiev. I'm in Morden this morning. You're listening to CBC. This is 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us here on our show. We are out on location in Morden as we learn more about this part of Manitoba for Communities in Focus. Still ahead to that end, we're going to talk to the director of the Pembina Hills Arts Council about what makes the art scene in this part of the province so unique. And also, you might have heard the mayor saying they managed to keep young people here. Why? How does that happen, especially when so many other communities struggle to retain young people? We also have business news and markets still ahead. If you need us this morning, please give us a call on the traffic line if you have anything urgent to report, 788-3093. And still ahead after your news, we're going to hear more about the liquidation of all Hudson Bay stores that we have now understood could start as early as today. So stay tuned. That news is after your CBC Winnipeg news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is -5. Straightforward forecast, one you'll like, I think. Mostly cloudy today, a high of 2. Relief and vindication. Those are some of the emotions Sandra Delaron felt, she says, after hearing the news a second set of remains recovered at Prairie Green landfill had been identified. The advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women says she hopes the finding will help the family as they move forward.
I hope that this next step, this finding, this identification, will help both families to find a sense of peace knowing that their loved ones will be coming home.
Yesterday, police confirmed the remains are those of Mercedes Myron. Earlier this month, they identified another set of remains as Morgan Harris. Both were among 4 victims of a serial killer. The former PC government refused to search the landfill and used its decision as part of its election campaign. Delaron says those decisions were traumatizing for many. Now, an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls says police need to be held accountable for their decision not to search the landfill. Hilda Anderson-Piers says the searchers' success in finding the remains of both Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron proves police were wrong. She says the identification of Myron's remain yesterday affects many.
This is, very heartbreaking news for the entire community, especially the families who are impacted and those who are waiting for their loved ones to come home.
Anderson-Piers wants Winnipeg's new police chief to explain how the process for handling cases involving missing vulnerable people will change. She wants an inquiry held to make sure this never happens again. People in Transcona vote in a by-election today. They are choosing their next MLA to replace Nello Altamare. The education minister died in January. 4 people are in the running. Shannon Corbett is running for the NDP. She has worked as a vice principal in the area. Sean Nason is running for the PCs. He is a former city councillor. Public servant Brad Boudreau is running for the Liberals. And Susan Ock, a former Olympic speed skater, is running as an independent. Voting in Transcona closes at 8 tonight. The City of Winnipeg's largest union has filed a grievance after the mayor said he wants all staff back in the office full-time. The city has allowed more than 1,000 employees to work hybrid schedules ever since the pandemic. On Friday, Mayor Scott Gillingham told business leaders he wants all of them back in the office 5 days a week. QP 500 President Gord Delbridge says the city is already struggling to hire people, and this will make it worse.
It's a bad idea. The mayor needs to do his homework on this one. Is this going to be cost-effective? Is this going to affect recruitment and retention? This is a cost savings measure. Who's going to bear that cost?
Gillingham maintains a return to the office will make public servants more accessible to the public and help businesses in the city's downtown. Well, health ministry officials in Gaza say Israeli airstrikes overnight have killed more than 400 people. It is by far the biggest Israeli attack on Gaza in 2 months, and it breaks the Gaza ceasefire, which had been in place since January. The assault comes as Israel has been pressuring Hamas to continue with phase 1 of the ceasefire and release more hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. However, Hamas wants to move into phase 2 of the agreement. Here is Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home.
You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Manitoba's finance minister says the NDP government is doing its part to fund education. But taxpayers in Winnipeg face double-digit increases in school taxes. The biggest hike, 16.5% in Louis Riel. The Winnipeg School Division, the city's largest, isn't far behind at 15%. In question period yesterday, Adrian Sala says that is not the province's fault.
We are actually funding school divisions in the way they need to be funded. That's important work. Manitobans can count on us to continue doing that important work.
Sala says his budget later this week is going to have a big focus on education spending. Well, they weren't lost in space, but they were stuck for 9 months.
And undocking confirmed, Freedom is free of its moorings.
This morning, a capsule left the International Space Station with astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams finally returning home to Earth. The Boeing Starliner capsule ran into problems, the one they took off in to go to the space station, and they had to wait for a more reliable SpaceX craft. Helen Sharman, the first person in space, describes what the returning astronauts will face.
Well, they'll be, first of all, given a quick medical checkup to make sure that they're coping okay with life back in the 1G environment of Earth. And we think they probably will. They've been into space a few times before. They're very experienced.
And they are expected to reach Earth just before 5 o'clock this afternoon, Central Time. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Models get built out of Lego, you know, the big adult sets that you can buy. And we just built. I had nothing to do with it. My husband just built like a big rocket, and the launcher. And it's fascinating how detailed all of those little details are. And so all this morning I'm like, oh, I feel like I understand some of the parts because you can actually open up the rocket. You see with a launch, and yeah, it's very cool.
Maybe they should use yours next time.
No credit for me, but we'll ask JP. I'll ask JP. I don't think it would work the same. But I bet you it would. I wonder if it's in the movie. I haven't seen. I know people are going to start finding the listener line. I've never seen the Lego movie.
No,
so I
neither
can't tell
have
you
I.
if there's a rocket in there. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're on a big tangent here because of the news. But let's get into the regional forecast. We're live in Morden this morning, so I can tell you that out here in Morden, it's -6, and it looks like it's pretty similar all around the province this morning. Abby, what do you know?
Yeah, we're looking at temperatures between -5 and -10 in the southern part of the province today. Winnipeg at -5, cloudy skies we're seeing. Expect this mostly cloudy conditions to stay with us this morning. We do have the slight chance of flurries this morning. Then we warm up to a high of 2 degrees. Similar conditions you're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, especially in Morden where you are. Heading west to Brandon, -8 and cloudy. There's a chance of snow this morning. High will be around -2. In the Parkland region, Dauphin -10, cloudy also. We do see a mix of sun and clouds today. High will be around -1. Then we travel into the Interlake region where we see Gimli sitting at -8 with cloudy conditions at this time. We should be seeing a high of a +2 today. From the South Central region, moving into the north, the powerful influence surrounding areas, -8 and partly cloudy. Heading for a high of a -5. And then Thompson, -10. We have snow there at this time of the day. High will be around -7. And then the further north you go into Churchill, temperatures still in the 20s, -22 at this time. Clear skies you have. We warm up to -18 today. So southern Manitoba will have mostly cloudy day with just a slight chance of snow and then some clear conditions tonight. Right now, Winnipeg, -5, warming up to +2.
All right. Thanks very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Now, just before we turn our attention to traffic, I'm sorry for our YouTube folks because I'm turning my back on you for a minute. That's because I'm looking out the window to the shop floor here at Decor Cabinet. I just want to describe this a little bit. So we're in the industrial park in Morden, and very cool. So there's some established businesses that are here, and then there's also something we'll learn about later called the Industrial Incubator, which is for new businesses that are looking to start up. We mentioned this is a very busy manufacturing part of the province, but Decor Cabinet has this 200,000 square foot shop floor, and I'm looking through the window because we're broadcasting in a quiet space here. It's so noisy down there. There's already workers that are busy just with the stacks and stacks of wood as they're obviously building cabinets. There's also a display of flags that show from where workers come from all over the world, here to work in Morden. The mayor was just talking about immigration, the attraction and appeal here for jobs, and of course the surrounding community. And it's getting busy down there. Through in the second hour of the show, we're hoping we'll be able to talk to some workers as well as they're busy about their work and about also what drew them to this part of the province. I just want to give a quick thank you as well to Stan Pauls, the CEO of Decor, for having us broadcast here on CBC this morning, and for getting us in early to set up here as well. Corey's on site here with me, Corey Funk, and have we heard any issues in traffic this morning?
No major issues. I'm just gonna say that the highways kind of here in kind of southwestern Manitoba, western Manitoba, might be a little bit snow covered, particularly actually Highway 1 between Austin and Brandon. Manitoba 511 is saying that that part of the highway is being reported as covered, so you might see some snow drift, some slippery conditions. So careful if you're taking Highway 1 between Austin and Brandon this morning. If you see anything else going on, or don't see anything, because there might be some visibility issues, particularly actually around Morden as well, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, it's time for business news on CBC. It's 20 minutes to 7 o'clock on your Tuesday morning, and Neil Kumar joins us now. Hi, Neil.
Hi, good morning.
So the Bay, Hudson's Bay stores, liquidation of all of them, which was a big news story this week that developed, that could start as soon as today?
Yes, and liquidating the entire business would put more than 9,000 jobs at stake. A full liquidation could last for up to 12 weeks. However, Hudson's Bay is still hopeful that it can find some kind of lifeline to stay afloat. Lawyers for the retailer, who were in an Ontario court on Monday, say that with the judge's approval, the liquidation would span across 80 stores, as well as 3 Saks Fifth Avenue stores and 13 Saks Off Fifth locations in Canada, which it owns, through a licensing agreement. Hudson's Bay is proposing a process that would allow it to remove some stores from the liquidation if it finds sufficient financing during the 10 to 12 weeks. That's when the company is expected to offload its inventory. The court hearing was meant to advance a creditor protection case that Hudson's Bay launched back on March 7th. That's when the company admitted it was struggling with financial difficulties amid subdued consumer spending, including trade tensions between Canada and the U.S. and post-pandemic drops in downtown store traffic.
Let's go to another story. This one's about beer. Canada's beer industry facing a major annual cost increase. What can you tell us about that?
That's correct, as the annual cost of cans will be hit with a $330 million increase if U.S. President Donald Trump doesn't retract the 25% tariff that he put on Canada's aluminum industry last week. Right now, aluminum beer cans are subject to double tariffs, as the United States imposed a 25% tariff on raw aluminum imports, and the Canadian government levying a 25% tariff on $30 billion worth of goods that are imported from the U.S. That includes beer cans that are complete or flattened sheets of aluminum that can be manufactured into cans. This means the cost of business will surge for Canadian breweries due to the number of border crossings that the beer cans will make before making it to the store shelves. 85% of packaged beer in Canada is sold in cans, and most of them are sourced from a number of major U.S. manufacturers.
And finally, before we look at markets this morning, the Canadian Real Estate Association, I understand, is reporting a drop in home sales in February. What's the reasoning behind it?
Well, this comes thanks to the uncertainty with tariffs, as home sales fell to their lowest level in more than a year last month. Home sales in February were down by 10.4%, and that's compared with the same month last year. However, on a seasonally adjusted basis, home sales were down 9.8% compared to January. According to CREA, it was the lowest level for home sales since November 2023 and the largest month-over-month drop since May of 2022. That's when the Bank of Canada began a series of aggressive rate hikes to fight inflation. CREA also says that new listings were down 12.7% month-over-month, following a surprise increase in January.
What's going on in the markets? Quick look at the numbers.
So in Europe, markets are trading in positive territory. Germany, UK, France all up. In Asia, markets are rising as Hong Kong tech stocks rally. Japan, Shanghai, Hong Kong all up. Also, oil is up 73 cents to $68.31 US per barrel. Gold is up $27.10 to $3,033 US per ounce. And the Canadian dollar is down 0.09 cents to 69.9 cents US.
All right, thanks very much, Neil.
All right, you're welcome, Moshi.
And just when you thought I couldn't tie everything back to Morden, where we're broadcasting from this morning, the beer story will work, because there's a brand new business, well, newer business, new to me, on Stephen Street, which we talk about as sort of the long, hip boutiques, bakeries, coffee shops, lots of entrepreneurs, little stores. There's also a spot called Rendezvous where they do brew their own. Time right now is 6:44. We're live in Morden. Well, I mentioned Stephen Street, and this is one of the main areas of Morden, and it's historic, and a lot of people go there and take a stroll. It's the main drag here in Morden, and when you go, you also pass a number of beautiful old buildings, and perhaps the most striking is the Old Dominion Post Office building in Morden, Manitoba. It's this beautiful red brick building. It's got a clock tower that juts into the skyline, and it's no surprise that it's now home to the Pembina Hills Arts Council. Seems fitting and beautiful. That's where Jenny Smurl's the director. She's up early and with us here live at Decor Cabinets, overlooking the shop floor. How are you?
Hi, Marcy. I'm good.
Good. So what I love, before I ask you about the art scene in this part of the province, is you actually came back to Morden to make it your home. Tell me a bit about that.
I did, yeah. I originally grew up in Notre Dame de Lourdes and then left for a number of years to do art and other things, and now I'm back.
What drew you back to this community? Because that's not an uncommon story.
You know, it was a bit of a just, my parents were retiring off the farm, and I was looking to get out of the downtown core Winnipeg, where I'd been off and on for 20 years. So it was a good opportunity to move out here. And then when I got here, suddenly there's, a job for me. There's this thriving art scene, which I could just kind of move right into and use my skills that I've been building for the last 20 years.
Tell me a little bit more about the art scene in this part of the province and what makes it unique.
There are so many artists out here. I really had no idea. And the amount of people that are just doing independent artwork, creating on their own and creating beautiful works of art, it's quite fantastic. With the quilting, painters, the pottery scene is thriving. It's just booming. Like, I had no idea until I got into the guts of the gallery and found out how much really is going on. And we don't even have, a tenth of the people that are working here in the arts. We're only pulling in maybe a tenth of that work.
Wow. I had no idea either. Mm-hmm. I heard there's a big quilting show coming up, and people are thinking, oh, big quilting show. Like, in the past, I heard it has 800 people. Like,
this is a big show.
Yeah.
If you have a chance to get down there, it's 2 days at least, and there are just massive quilts that are hanging throughout the whole access center, that you can just wander through and walk and see the amazing
artistry.
Yeah. It's their works of art.
And that's coming up just a little bit later. Well, in weeks from now, I think, a little later this spring. As a potter yourself, how has your art changed since moving back? Are there regional influences that get into your work, or do you see that in some of the other work that artists are making?
There's I've been doing a lot of teaching and directing at the gallery, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to do my own art, but just being in connection with other potters here. There are some fantastic potters that do hand building that are very involved at the gallery. We also have an open studio program where people can just come rent pottery time and come on their own to make work. So it's really developed my problem solving skills in order to help other people with their problems, and has given me an opportunity to share what I've learned throughout the 20 years of my studio pottery background.
The demographics of this area have changed a lot in the past decade, I understand. How has that impacted the art scene? Do you see that effect?
I've just recently come back, so I haven't seen the whole change myself. I know we've been trying to keep up with the changes at the gallery, and that's a bit of it's a learning curve all the time.
Yeah. Where can people reach you if they're interested, or if they're out this way in Morden, if they want to take part in some of the coming events you've got going on?
Oh, you can reach us at www.pembinahillsarts.com. That's our website. And then you can contact us directly over the phone or through email, the info at pembinahillsarts.com.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for being up early and being with us here. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Marcy. It's been a pleasure.
That's Jenny Smurl. She's the director of Pembina Hills Arts Council. We are broadcasting live from Morden, and now we have a little bit of local Morden music to next on the show. This is someone you're going to know. This is the Pride of Morden, who's up for a Juno again this year. Here's Lorena McKinnon. Lorena McKinnon, you knew we were going to play it this morning. You have to. The Mummers Dance, beautiful, one of her originals. And she is the Pride of Morden, Manitoba, where we're broadcasting from this morning, or one of the prides. It's a very rich part of the province for music and arts. But Lorena McKinnon said she herself was even somewhat surprised that she is up again for a Juno. This year, just because she, her new music, she said, came to her very easily, and out it came, and what a talent. The Junos will be handed out on March 30th in Vancouver. Time right now is 8 minutes to 7 o'clock on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live in the Pembina Valley this morning, but we want to turn our attention to politics because this is the first week with the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and he appears to be wasting no time building stronger relationships with key allies. On Monday, Carney was in France. He met with President Emmanuel Macron and then the UK to meet with Prime Minister Keir Starmer and King Charles. All of the travel and diplomacy is happening against the backdrop of Trump's tariff threats and the talk of making Canada a 51st state that continues. Now, today, Carney's back in Canada. He will visit Iqaluit, and for a closer look at Mark Carney's first week in office, or I guess I should say first few days, Ryan Tumulty is with us, political reporter with the Toronto Star. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think was achieved by Carney's visits to France and the UK?
You know, I think he was trying to demonstrate basically that Canada has friends, Canada has allies, and that there's support out there in the world for us. I'm not sure he got as much of that as he was hoping. Certainly, the UK and French leaders all said nice things about Canada, how important an ally we are, and the strong trade relationship, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what they didn't say is that Donald Trump should shut up about this 51st state stuff. They didn't come out with sort of a big swinging attack on Donald Trump for trying to minimize our sovereignty. And I think that reflects the fact that, they have their own trade fights coming with the U.S. president. He's talked about global tariffs coming in place on April 2nd. And so, I'm not sure anyone's really prepared to stick out their neck for Canada at this point, which, of course, is unfortunate, but is understandable. The Prime Minister Carney got some of what he wanted on this trip, but I'm not sure all of what he wanted.
I want to move to the carbon tax, because that's what a lot of Canadians are talking about this. Obviously, the opposition is as well. Walk us through the opposition leaders reacting to the new PM and scrapping the consumer carbon tax. I mean, really, as soon as he was signed in.
Yeah, so this has gotten the most reaction, obviously, from the Conservatives. The Conservatives have been running for 2 years on an Axe the Tax platform. That has really been central to their message. Part of their slogan, it's on T-shirts. It's so central to what the Conservatives have been doing. And now Carney has gone ahead and done it ahead of them. So the criticism that you've heard from the Conservatives is kind of twofold. One, Carney did this with regulation. He effectively left the bill that authorizes the carbon tax in place, but lowered the carbon tax to zero. The Conservatives are suggesting that he'll just bring it back after an election and he won't even have the rebates. But the other criticism they have, and they moved on this yesterday, Pierre Poilievre announced that he would repeal not only the consumer carbon tax, the one we're all used to paying at the gas pumps, et cetera, but the industrial carbon tax. That's a carbon tax on heavy emitters. Lots of provinces already had their own programs in place, but there is a federal sort of backstop to it that would prevent them from dismantling their own industrial programs. It is responsible for a huge chunk of Canada's emissions reductions. It's our most significant part of that effort. And Pierre Poilievre said he would scrap it as well. That is something he hasn't said previously. He's sort of deflected questions on that in the past. So Pierre Poilievre coming out, I guess, with a tax he can scrap now that Carney has scrapped the other one.
Just in our last minute here, I just want to return to Donald Trump, the U.S. president. Do we expect Carney to be meeting with Trump? Do we know that?
Yeah, I mean, Carney has said he is open to a call. I believe they've talked about a call, between their respective staffs, but we don't have any specifics now. I think Carney is trying to portray a message that he is not desperate for the call. That's part of why he went to the UK and France first. He has definitely talked about he's prepared to engage with the Americans when the Americans start showing respect for Canada.
All right. Well, we'll leave our conversation there this morning. Thank you very much, Ryan.
All right. Thank you.
Ryan Tumulty, political reporter with the Toronto Star. Now, ahead on the program, you might have heard this yesterday. Guest host Margot Watt was in for me, and she was talking to a farmer, producer that actually produces canola just around where we are this morning in Morden, just outside of Morden. And he was saying politically he feels that the Liberals have been ignoring farmers. And he feels that it's a political move because the votes are in Quebec and Ontario when it comes to winning and losing elections. And so they ignore farmers on the prairies. And particularly right now, he wants attention from the feds because of the counter tariffs that the Canada has put in place. And he says the effect on China, that has triggered huge tariffs on China. And he's really going to be looking to struggle. He says his losses on canola because of the Chinese tariffs could be somewhere in the range of, I believe it was $80,000 per year is what he was sharing with us. So we're going to see how everything shakes out for the Liberals and for all the parties in the next federal election, whenever it's going to be called. Of course, we expect in the next week we could see some movement on that front. Right now it is 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, broadcasting live from Morden. But let's go back to our Winnipeg News Center and find out what else is making headlines. Heather.
The City of Winnipeg's largest union has filed a grievance after the mayor said he wants all staff back in the office full-time. The city has allowed more than 1,000 employees to work hybrid schedules since the pandemic. Well, union boss Gord Delbert says the city's already struggling to hire people, and this is just going to make it worse. Manitoba's finance minister says the NDP government is doing its part to fund education, but taxpayers in Winnipeg face double-digit increases in school taxes. Adrian Sala says his budget later this week is going to have a big focus on education spending. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Right now in Winnipeg, it is -5. Our high today is going to be right around 2 degrees in Winnipeg. And we right now are cloudy and we'll see how the day progresses. Morden's around -6 right now, by the way. So very different conditions north and south in the province. Much colder up north, and here in the south, we're going to be right around that 0 to 2 degrees above. So we'll see more melting. Be careful if you're on the highways. It could be partly snow covered in places. A lot more snow out here near the border than there is in Winnipeg, for example. But if wherever you're traveling, give us a call if you have a problem. It's 788-3093. In the next hour of the program, she started selling homemade makeup at a farmer's market 20 years ago here in Morden. Since then, she's built it into a well-recognized international brand. We're going to hear more from her from another story here from our Communities in Focus broadcast. In addition, the next hour of the show, Morden's mayor talked about the targeted immigration strategy in this city to not only attract people but keep them here. At 7:40, a beautiful story about how no policy can replace a genuine family-to-family connection like the one that was made between the Clausens and the Tourés from West Africa. So stay tuned. And we'll hear more from the Premier on confirmation that remains belonging to Mercedes Myron have been found.
On the Current.
It wasn't safe for her to be alone, but it wasn't just that. People in her apartment building weren't safe either.
Many seniors are reluctant to move into long-term care, but new models are looking to make that experience better for residents. Some specialists, though, say there is still too much reliance on for-profit care and lots of room for improvement. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is shattered. Israel carried out attacks across Gaza overnight. The local health ministry says more than 400 people have been killed. Rosalia Boland is with UNICEF in Gaza.
I could hear people yelling outside, screaming. Bombing has continued throughout the night. We've seen reports of several dozen children killed.
Israel says it launched the attacks because Hamas refused to extend the ceasefire and release its hostages. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing is in Jerusalem with the latest.
Wrapped bodies are piled up together in Gaza City. Overhead, the hum of Israeli surveillance drones. We were sleeping, then suddenly woke up on the strike, says Mohammed Badir. He helped pull his neighbors' bodies from the rubble. Realizing he had not seen his own daughter, they went searching. Her body was also recovered. The renewed attacks come as Israel continues to pressure Hamas to agree to an extension to phase 1 of the ceasefire and release more hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Hamas has been holding out to move ahead with phase 2 of talks, as both sides had previously agreed. Danny Danon is Israel's UN ambassador.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home.
Israel released images of its top military and security leaders watching the largest wave of strikes on Gaza in roughly 2 months from the Air Force headquarters in Tel Aviv. Hamas says the strikes expose Israel's true intentions to, quote, spill the blood of innocent civilians, with one official saying the return of war amounts to a death sentence for the remaining hostages. On the ground in Han Yunis, the director of Gaza hospitals pleads for international help. No aid, including fuel, medicine, and equipment, has been allowed to enter Gaza in weeks, making saving the scores of injured people, including children, even harder. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Russia's war on Ukraine could take a major turn this morning. U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are expected to have a phone conversation within a few hours. Trump is trying to cut a deal that would usher in a ceasefire in Ukraine. Anna Cunningham reports.
This phone call could be crucial. President Vladimir Putin says he has many questions about the deal, but President Donald Trump remains positive.
Doing pretty well, I think, with Russia. Excellency, we have something to announce.
Posting on social media, Trump says while there have been agreements, much remains to be worked upon. But the concern from Ukraine is that a deal done with Russia will leave Kyiv on the sidelines, giving the Kremlin concessions it wants. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says there are indications of what might be discussed.
There's a power plant that is on the border of Russia and Ukraine that was up for discussion with the Ukrainians, and he will address it in his call with Putin.
This is likely to be Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia, occupied by Russians since March 2022.
It worries me and should worry everyone in Europe,
says Poland's Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski. Concerns persist with ongoing fighting about a potential nuclear accident. Sikorski says some of Putin's demands are outrageous.
The ceasefire on the Russian side should be unconditional.
In his nightly address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Putin is prolonging the war. Today, Ukraine's foreign minister says he believes Trump can achieve a just and lasting peace. All now hangs on that phone call. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
4 Eastern European countries are signaling they plan to pull out of an international agreement on landmines. It's known as the Ottawa Treaty, and its goal is to eliminate anti-personnel mines. They can harm civilians long after wars have ended. Dominic Velitis has the details.
In a joint statement, the defence ministers of Poland, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania blamed Russian aggression for their move to recommend withdrawing from the so-called Ottawa Treaty, the 1997 landmark international agreement created and promoted by Canada to address the global humanitarian crisis caused by anti-personnel landmines. More than 160 countries have signed the treaty. To date, none have left. If approved by their respective parliaments, quitting will allow Poland, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania to start stockpiling landmines again. The 4 countries, which all share a border with Russia, say their defence forces need flexibility and freedom of choice to potentially use weapons to protect their borders and bolster NATO's vulnerable eastern flank. Dominic Velitis for CBC News, Riga, Latvia.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is back in the air. He is on a plane that departed London for Iqaluit this morning. Today, he will be meeting with Inuit leaders. Their talks are expected to focus on Arctic security and sovereignty. Retired Colonel Pierre Leblanc is the president of Arctic Security Consultants.
It's important that he does come to Iqaluit because it will be seen by others as a visit by the Prime Minister to the Arctic.
Defense Minister Bill Blair and Chief of Defense Staff General Jenny Carignan will be with Carney today in Nunavut. Canada's military is pushing forward with plans to build new ultra-modern destroyer warships. Nova Scotia-based Irving Shipbuilding and BAE Systems of the UK recently signed a collaboration contract. They'll work together to deliver 3 of the vessels. But as Murray Brewster explains, the federal government refuses to say what the cost of each warship will be.
It's fair to say March is the month for signing big naval contracts. With the Irving and BAE agreement, the pieces are falling into place for the eventual construction of 15 warships to replace the Navy's aging frigates. Earlier this month, the federal government revealed it was putting an $8 billion down payment towards the delivery of 3 destroyers, with an eventual cost of $22 billion. The Defense Department says ammunition and training are included in the overall price tag, but officials refuse to disclose a detailed cost breakdown.
It's doublespeak. I mean, it's tragic when you can't be open with the public. Let us know how our money is being spent.
Alan Williams, a former senior defense official, also tried and failed through access to information legislation to get a per-ship cost estimate.
Because I've worked with ministers, someone certainly would have put numbers to them.
Richard Schmuka, a defense expert at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, says the fight over the cost of the F-35 fighter and its eventual postponement a decade ago clearly haunts the federal bureaucracy.
I think this is in some ways the scars of the F-35.
The numbers are important because the Liberal government chose to go with a pre-existing warship design, saying it would be cheaper. Allies have no problem releasing their shipbuilding estimates. The UK is paying an average of $1.9 billion for each of its 3 ships of this type. Australia, $4.1 billion. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
Drake's record label is asking a U.S. federal court to dismiss a lawsuit filed by the Canadian rapper. The case centers on a diss track by Drake's rival Kendrick Lamar. Universal Music represents both rappers, and as Thomas Daigle reports, the label insists the song's taunts are fair play.
They not like us. They not like us.
In a new court filing obtained by CBC News, Universal Music Group says the lyrics to Kendrick Lamar's smash hit, Not Like Us, should be considered hyperbole and opinion, not fact.
Say, Drake, I hear you like I'm young.
Without evidence, the song accuses Drake of being a pedophile, an allegation the Canadian star strongly denies. The song surging to the top of the charts last year amid an escalating war of words between the two rappers.
You mentioned my seed and I deal with his dad. I gotta go bad. I gotta go bad.
Drake recently filed a defamation suit against Universal, the music giant that represents both rappers. Now the company says Drake is merely trying to recover after losing that high-profile rap battle, pointing out he too used violent lyrics and salacious allegations against Lamar.
Defamation cases are a little bit difficult in the U.S. because of the First Amendment and the right to free speech.
New York-based attorney Peter Tillum says Universal may succeed in getting the case dismissed in U.S. federal court.
When you're dealing with public figures, it's even harder to prove.
I could never be nobody number one fan.
Drake hasn't yet responded to his record label's latest legal salvo. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
I know my picture on the wall when y'all cook up.
Last 10 years before. Yeah, I was in first Bangladeshi here, so I didn't find out actually any Muslim people here when I came here.
So how big is the Muslim community here now?
It's almost 150 people Muslim people in this area. It's very nice community now. Before it was only me, and I really not feel good that time, but I'm now so happy now. I love everything in Morden. It's a heaven, I told you. Hi, I am Jafrul Hassan, Ramadan Mubarak. You're listening to Information Radio, live from Morden on CBC Radio 1.
How lovely to have someone say they love everything about a community. Well, we are in this community today. I'm Marcy Marcusa, CBC, live on location in Morden. We're at Decor Cabinet as we learn more about what makes this community work and grow and who is working here and families growing here. We have a lot of special stories this hour. First of all, when you think about manufacturing, you might think of heavy machinery or textiles. Here in Morden, though, there's also a cosmetics manufacturer that's really made a name for itself across the country and internationally as well. We're going to hear their story. Also, we're going to get Corey down to the busy shop floor here at Decor Cabinet to talk to one of the people that works here. There's about 500 in this space. And then we're going to hear about a family that waited 30 years in a refugee camp before being sponsored to Canada. They say they not only found a home in Morden, but a beautiful connection with one of the Manitoba families that sponsored them. It's a heartwarming story you don't want to miss, and that is coming up at 7:40. So lots of great stories this hour to lean into. Though right now we have to lean into other news. Heather Wells joins us with headlines. She's back in Winnipeg. Time right now 7:12.
Good morning. Well, relief and vindication are just some of the emotions Sandra Delaron says she felt after hearing news a second set of remains recovered at Prairie Green landfill had been identified. The advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women says she hopes the finding will help the family as they move forward. Yesterday, police confirmed remains are Mercedes Myron, and earlier this month they identified another set of remains as those of Morgan Harris. Both were among 4 victims of a serial killer. We'll hear the latest on that. And people in Transcona vote in a by-election today. They are choosing their next MLA to replace Nello Altamare, who was Manitoba's education minister and died in January. 4 people are in the running in this by-election. We'll hear who they are in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Heather. Appreciate it. Let's get into what's happening in the weather forecast. Abby Adeyemi, how are you doing today?
Good morning. We're great with cloudy skies this morning. We do have that slim chance of snow in the forecast down south here. We'll see some clearing in the northern part of the province. But for Winnipeg and surrounding area, all the way down to Morden where you are, we are seeing these cloudy conditions and temperatures hovering around -5, -6. It's going to be mainly cloudy today, as mentioned. Slim chance of flurries in the forecast this morning. Then some light winds, and we warm up to +2. And similar condition we're seeing down south. Temperatures will be hovering around -5 and -9 at this point, though it's colder in the northern part of the province. But the good news is we get a mainly sunny day tomorrow, and then we warm up to +1. But for Winnipeg right now, it's -5 and it's cloudy.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is here with me in Morden, and you're also taking the traffic calls.
Yes, no calls yet on the line, but I can tell you that the highways might be some issues between Brandon and Austin on Highway 1. Looks like Manitoba 501, some covered conditions, so be careful. There might be some snowdrift, some slippery situations there, and kind of just not ideal conditions kind of around southwestern Manitoba this morning. Other than that, though, if you see something going on, if you're in Winnipeg, anywhere else in the province, give me a call on the CBC commuter line to let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, as I mentioned, manufacturing has long been part of Morden's economy, and the economy overall in the Pembina Valley here where we are, with Winkler just 7K up the road. But here in Morden, Bueller Industries, for example, has made farm equipment here for decades and decades. Decor Cabinet, where we're broadcasting from, employs over 500 people. We're just above their shop floor, which is 200,000 square feet. They've added on to this facility. And there's countless other small manufacturers here as well, but it's not just heavy industry. Corey actually talked to the owner of a company that's making something that many people may not realize is made right here in southern Manitoba.
Yeah, that's right. So I spoke with Candice Grenier, the owner and formulator behind Pure Annata Cosmetics. Her company, it makes organic makeup products, sells it at their own boutiques, actually here in Morden and Winkler, but also at retailers across Canada, actually in the U.S. as well. She has this lovely little boutique on Stephen Street.
I know, I passed it yesterday, and it's just like really beautifully revamped.
And you know what? It smells great in there too, actually.
Building, like fresh product.
Yeah, it smells. You can smell when you walk outside. It's really nice. So this boutique, and she also makes some of those products in there, but she's actually since had to move a lot of the production just outside of town to another manufacturing facility because it's just grown so much. So I met her at the boutique, which is stocked with all the products that the company makes, and I asked her to show me, a particular product that's particularly special to her.
Absolutely. Actually, the very first product I made, what started Pure Annata right in the beginning, was our loose mineral foundation. So that's the product that I had trouble with rosacea on my skin, and I went online and tried to find a solution for it and found mineral makeup was the best soothing thing for my skin. And in my research, I discovered a kit, do make it yourself mineral makeup kit. So this is the very first product I ever made. And it's the first one I took to craft sales and discovered that there was other women who had the same issues as me who wanted something more natural and soothing for their skin. So this is what started it all.
Do you still wear it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's my foundation. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of neat. Yeah. So it all started with this kind of small little cylinder of makeup here. And now we're here in a storefront, which you have two of, right? One here in Morden, one in Winkler?
Yeah, and actually we have two in Alberta as well that are our stores, Pure Annata boutiques.
Wow. And this kind of first piece of makeup, this was like 20 years in the making, right? Where that got you to here, right?
That's right, 20 years ago. So it's been some time. Yeah.
Wow. How big of a role did the community of Morden play in the growth of this business? Because I mean, you get even just from walking downtown, just from spending the time with manufacturers, there's a really strong entrepreneurial, but also strong community vibe here.
Yes. Oh, 100%. I feel like the people of Morden really supported me as when they first found out about me when we opened our first boutique downtown here. I think there's just this local pride. Wow, this is made here. And then to know that it's shipped across Canada and all across North America, I really sense that the locals have pride in what we're doing, that it's made here.
Cool. Mm-hmm. And so to give us listeners a sense of just how big your business has grown in the last 20 years, what might be some, I don't know, numbers or just, just a sense of, how big your business has grown?
Yeah, well, we actually have about 300 retail partners. Like those are stores that carry our product. So there's really, we're seen across the country, I guess, in all these little natural health food stores, some larger health food stores, or organic salons and spas. So we're shipping orders every day. On payroll, we have about 30 people, mostly women. So I take pride in knowing that we support women who want a nice, pleasant job, a flexible job. And so, yeah.
Now, I know also you sell, I guess, a little bit to the U.S. as well. Do these tariffs impact you? I got to ask.
Well, you know what? Most of our business is within Canada because I've always felt this major support from Canadians. But we do have customers and retail partners in this state. So I was really sad to hear about the tariffs because I really do wonder if they're going to consider if they want to carry Pure Nata or not any longer. I hope they do, of course, that they're connected with our brand in a different way than that and that the tariffs won't affect. But I think for me personally, it's also the dash of the future dream of expanding into the United States, because now with this in place, it doesn't seem as fluid or as easy to make that happen. But the silver lining is that I really feel Canadians are stepping up now and really supporting Made in Canada. So for that, it's not that bad of a thing in that way. Yeah.
Have you noticed a difference, like in people coming in like, hey, you're Made in Canada, either like, larger kind of customers, purchasers, or even just individuals coming in and being like, hey, like, I want to buy you instead?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Like we'll have people coming into our local boutiques and want to confirm that it's made here in Canada. And then also just in the last couple months, which we are sure is because of the tariffs, we've had some larger natural product retailers like in the Greater Toronto area and Vancouver area who've inquired about carrying our products. So we're going to be sending out to a lot of new retail locations now because they've taken a switch and thought, hey, we're going to carry something Canadian instead of importing from Europe or the States. So
you started another business that you've since sold that actually manufactures makeup for a bunch of other bigger brands, but we don't know what they are. But to tell us a little bit about that aspect of your business history.
Right. So when I first started making cosmetics for my own brand, I was really surprised when I'd have other companies reach out to me and ask me if I would produce products for them. So what I learned then is that most cosmetic brands don't make their own product. They hire contract manufacturers. So I took up on the opportunity. I was an entrepreneur and started making for other brands. And that aspect of my business grew bigger than what Pure Nata actually was. And we began producing products for companies around the world, people that appreciated like certified organic and natural cosmetics. And interesting to note is that sometimes I'd ask a client, from Australia, why did you choose us? Like, I know that there's companies everywhere. And most often they would say, it's because you're Canadian, you're really friendly, you're kind. And they just had that stereotype about us, and we kind of seemed to fit that stereotype for them. So that company grew, and it became too much for me to handle. So 2 years ago, I did sell it to a local couple. Lori used to work in the back filling lipsticks. And so when she heard I was interested in selling, her and her husband Brian got on that and purchased. Proliferate is the company's name. And they have grown in the last 2 years tremendously. People still appreciate Made in Canada. So, yeah, I'm happy for them.
Is there some things that people, get wrong or misunderstand about Morden that you'd like them to know about?
I think sometimes people forget about Morden, especially our downtown district. We have some really lovely shops, a restaurant and things that people sometimes just take the highway and they go straight to Winkler. But I challenge people to stop and make the visit, to come out to Morden and see what we have to offer, because I think it's a very charming town and, yeah, it needs to be celebrated.
So that's Candace Grenier, owner and formulator of Pure Nata Cosmetics here in Morden. She was talking about some of the growth in the business and having to, sell off part of what she was doing as well. And one of the new businesses is part of the Industrial Incubator Mall. And that's very interesting, where they develop new products and entrepreneurs go to really get their foot into manufacturing. We're going to hear more about that in the next hour as our broadcast from Morden continues. Now, the time right now, 7:22. Our high in Winnipeg will be 2 2 degrees. The high out here in Morden's going to be 2 as well. And we right now are sitting at -5 in Winnipeg, and Morden's sitting at -6. Well, we are in the industrial park in Morden this morning. I'm actually up in a boardroom overlooking the shop floor at Decor Cabinets. And this space this company employs 500 employees at Decor Cabinets. And every 2 weeks, that means roughly $800,000 worth of paychecks head out to these employees. We're going to talk to their CEO in the next hour about some of the successes and challenges here, and of course what he's thinking about tariffs. But right now it's about to get noisy potentially, because we're going to send you down live to the shop floor where Corey Funk has made his way, amidst all the equipment down there, and he has an employee with him. Hi, Corey.
Hello. Yes, it might be a little bit noisy down here. So Anna Ardila is who I'm with right now. So she's a supervisor in the paint department here, and you came here you for eight to 9 years or so. You've worked here. What brought you to Morden?
I'm actually moved to Canada about 20 years ago. I moved from Colombia as a refugee, which was really scary. Number one, I didn't know the language. I didn't know where we were going. It was a family of 7. So it was a new beginning. We first came to Winnipeg, but because it was a bigger city, we got a little bit nervous. So we decided to look for something more smaller, more local. So we found Morden, and that became our home for 19 years now. Then came to Decor. And since then, it's been growth. It's been change. It's been, my son was actually working at Decor before. Now he's going to college. When we talk about innovation, when we talk about growing our people, I see myself 20 years ago, and I just want to invest in everyone as much as I can, as Decor has done it for me and our community.
And what is it about Morden that not only made you want to come here, but also stay? Because we know there's a huge retention rate here for newcomers. Well, what is it about the community here?
Oh, number one, like I said, I didn't speak the language at all. So having people actually spending that time to show us, to teach us, like everything was new. We come from a third world country that is totally different, and people took that time to actually make us feel welcome. The church, work, wherever we go, we feel like we're part of here. We don't feel like we don't belong. We feel like this is our family now.
And how much has it changed, like even in the past, 8 to 9 years since you started working here? Because I know there's a lot of newcomers coming in the last 10 years. What's that been like for you?
Well, I see a lot of growth, like from when I came. There was not a whole lot of different cultures. There was a few, but right now it's growing. And it's actually very beautiful because we get to experience our cultures, and we get to know our people and their food, and it's just amazing.
Before I let you go here, just tell me a little bit about the work that you do here, and why you love what you do.
I think it's because an opportunity to invest, number one, on myself. Like I never thought I would be able to talk in public or talk to anyone like this, especially in English. Like I said before, I didn't speak anything. And now I can invest in someone else who's new, who is maybe a little bit scared of, okay, what's going on? I don't know anything about this culture. So how can we invest in these people and help it that, like the same that they helped me one day?
You feel like you're finally in a place now where you can pay it forward a little bit.
100%. And that's what I want to do in this life.
Well, thanks so much. And I'll let you get back to work.
Thank you.
Thanks. Back to you, Marcy.
Very cool. Loved hearing that sentiment and story with Corey, who's down on the floor with Anna, who's one of the workers here at Decor Cabinet. So it actually wasn't too loud down there, but I can tell you the workers are all sort of working the big machines, and they're building cabinets. So big woodworking shop down. It's about 200,000 square feet, 500 employees here in Morden. We're going to talk to the CEO in the next hour. This is our live show on location in southern Manitoba at 7:26 a.m. You're on CBC. I am Marcy Marcusa, and thanks for being with us this morning. Let's get to morning sports and one of the regular parts of our show. Scott Regier does join us. Good morning, Scott.
Hey there, Marcy.
So let's talk Jets. Back on the ice tonight. They're pushing for the playoffs.
Yeah, and taking on a team in the Vancouver Canucks that are in a very different position than the league-leading Jets. The Canucks just fighting for their playoff lives. While a regular season game is never a one-on-one comparable to a playoff matchup, forward Kyle Connor believes it still could be a learning experience for his team.
We can build on moments here, and we can learn from our successes and our failures and draw from that. But the playoffs is such a different animal. It's playing against one team for possibly 7 games, and it's all about matchups. So it's different in a sense, but I still think we have to use this regular season as an opportunity to learn, and we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, the Jets and Canucks could easily meet in the first round of the playoffs, so maybe a preview tonight. Puck drop is at 9 o'clock.
Let's talk Homans, former Olympian, and the IOC are going to be meeting.
Yes, the IOC in the news today as they're going to select their next president come Thursday. There are 7 candidates, with the favorite probably Lord Sebastian Coe, Marcy, the longtime head of World Athletics. Coe's platform includes a tough stance when it comes to, as he puts it, safeguarding the female category. Under his watch, World Athletics banned transgender athletes back in 2023 and then went a step further this year, proposing changes that would extend the same rules to female athletes with higher testosterone levels.
The protection of the female category, for me, is absolutely non-negotiable. If you are not prepared to do that, and that is where the international federations expect a lead to be taken, then you really will lose female sport, and I'm not prepared, we certainly haven't been in World Athletics, prepared to see that happen.
Coe's taking a stronger position than another candidate, David Lapartien, who is the head of the International Cycling Federation, says this is a complex matter that must respect human rights, not just fair competition. Thursday's vote for IOC president is going to take place behind closed doors in Athens, and you can read more about the candidates up on our website this morning.
Well, I don't know if you've ever been to Morden, Manitoba, Scott, where we are this morning. It's about an hour and a half southwest of Winnipeg. It's called the City of Discovery. But if you're ever here, it's the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame that's located here.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, which is what's leading me into the next story, because apparently we can watch baseball this morning.
The late Harry Carey's version of the sport's most iconic tune, Marcy, fitting since the team he loved, the Chicago Cubs, are currently facing the Dodgers in the regular season opener. Of course, it's nighttime in Tokyo where this series is taking place and where there are 5 Japanese players suiting up between both sides. The opening pitch thrown by Chicago's Shota Imanaga to Dodgers phenom Shohei Ohtani, and it's Ohtani's Dodgers ahead in the 8th inning, 3-1. Who said we have to wait for the equinox later this week, Marcy, for spring to get underway?
We'll take it. I love me some baseball. Thank you very much, Scott.
You bet.
That's Scott Regehr live on CBC with Sports. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Give us a call if you have a problem in your commute, no matter where you are in Manitoba this morning. 788-3093. We'll update your weather in a moment. And then still ahead on our live broadcast from Morden, we're going to hear more about a beautiful story, actually, about how no policy for immigration and newcomers can replace a genuine family connection in terms of trying to get people to stay somewhere. And we're going to hear about a connection that was made between the Clausen family here in Morden and the Tourés who arrived from West Africa. That's after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30, still -5. We're expecting clouds today, very slight chance of early morning flurries. Otherwise, a pleasant day, a high this afternoon of 2. A range of emotions is how an MMIWG advocate describes her feelings after hearing the remains of Mercedes Myron had been identified. Police and the province made that announcement yesterday. Sandra Delaron says there was vindication, but she also thought about how the families and community were told a search of Prairie Green landfill could not be done.
Why did we have to wait 2.5 years? And also a sense of we knew it could be done. And of course, we see that today it can be done.
Earlier this month, the province announced the remains of Morgan Harris had also been identified after also being recovered at the landfill. They are among 4 women murdered in Winnipeg by a serial killer. Delaron says the outcome of the search proves a united community's voice can make things happen. Now, an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls says the identification of a second set of remains at Prairie Green is heartbreaking. Hilda Anderson-Pierce says it is time to hold Winnipeg police to account.
There should be an inquiry launched into the handling of the bodies that have been disposed of in the landfill and the response from the Winnipeg police. You know, they have a major responsibility in this. They had the opportunity to search the landfill and they didn't. They refused to search it.
Anderson Pierce wants Winnipeg's new police chief to explain how the process for handling cases involving missing vulnerable people will change. Well, people in Transcona are voting today for their next MLA. It is by-election day, and 4 people are vying to represent that East Winnipeg constituency. Voting starts in half an hour at 8 o'clock this morning. CBC's Ian Fraze sets up the race.
The death of former NDP MLA Nello Altomar led to this by-election today in Transcona. He died in January after a battle with cancer. The NDP is hoping another educator will replace Altomar, a former school principal. Shannon Corbett has worked as a vice principal in the area. The PC candidate is former city councillor Sean Nason. He served the Transcona ward for 1 term beginning in 2018. The Manitoba Liberals selected public servant Brad Boudreau as its candidate. Boudreau works as an advisor for the federal Crown Indigenous Relations Minister, and Susan Ock, a former Olympic speed skater, is running as an independent. Voting closes tonight at 8 p.m. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Pushing back over heading back to the office. Winnipeg's mayor says calling all staff back to the office will help the city's downtown. Scott Gillingham has told business leaders he wants employees coming to the workplace 5 days a week. CUPE 500 President Gord Delbridge says union members are upset. He warns ending flexible workplace arrangements could hurt the city's recruitment and retention.
Here's a mayor that has taken an approach of supporting business as opposed to workers. And this is really disturbing that he doesn't consult with us. He doesn't do his homework and find out what type of implications this is going to have.
The union has filed a policy grievance over the issue. The city introduced its flexible workplace program during the pandemic. 1,500 staff were in the program as of late 2023. Health ministry officials in Gaza say Israeli airstrikes overnight have killed more than 400 people. It is by far the biggest Israeli attack on Gaza in 2 months, and it breaks the Gaza ceasefire, which had been in place since January. The assault comes as Israel has been pressuring Hamas to continue with phase 1 of the ceasefire and release more hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. However, Hamas wants to move into phase 2, as the two sides had previously agreed. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Manitoba's finance minister says the NDP government is doing its part to fund education, but taxpayers in Winnipeg face double-digit increases in school taxes. The biggest hike, 16.5% in Louis Riel. The Winnipeg School Division, the city's largest, isn't far behind at 15%. In question period yesterday, Adrian Sala says that is not the province's fault.
We are actually funding school divisions in the way they need to be funded. That's important work. Manitobans can count on us to continue doing that important work.
Salas says his budget, coming up later this week, will have a big focus on education spending. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
And still ahead this half hour, as we heard in the news.
At the outset of this search, to be able to say that we would return Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron seemed like, at the very least, a really tall order, a tough project to deliver on.
Premier Wab Kinew reacting to news that the second set of remains found at the Prairie Green landfill are in fact those of Mercedes Myron. Of course, this comes just weeks after the remains of another victim found in the same landfill was identified as Morgan Harris. We're going to hear more of what the Premier had to say still ahead this half hour on the program. I just wanted to mention that because I know we've been talking so much about Morden. I don't want to be far away from other news that's been developing in our province. So it is 7:36 a.m. and we are live in Morden. We're at Decor Cabinet here, and we'll go back to Corey, who's in the shop floor in just a moment. We're overlooking the big shop floor where they're making the cabinets. It's some 200,000 square feet. It employs 500 people. And to get here, you go an hour and a half southwest of Winnipeg, and you drive on the highways, which are in pretty good condition, I think. But there's a lot more snow out here, and you really realize that once you get outside the perimeter. Could be some melting today, though. Abby has our regional forecast next.
Yeah, it's going to be more like a cloudy day today. We do have that slim chance of snow and light snow in most of the areas today. At this time, -5 in Winnipeg, Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, Steinbach. We're seeing temperatures around -7, -8. The Parkland Flon -9, Thompson -11, and Churchill sitting at -23 this morning.
All right, thanks, Abby. And now let's go down to the shop floor. It may be noisy. It depends where Corey stands. But he's got your traffic, and then we're going to meet another person that works here at Decor.
Yeah, it seems like we're in a bit of maybe a quieter spot here. But so one quick traffic hit before we kind of chat with this guy beside me here. Highway 1, got a call from Damien. So apparently Highway 1 kind of heading through Brandon right now, going westbound. He says it's just 3 kilometers straight of just semis totally stopped right now. Not totally sure why, but clearly something's going on. It's very, very backed up. Highway 1 westbound through Brandon. If you have any updates on that or anything else you're seeing out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. You see Manitoba 501. That's pretty snowy conditions on Highway 1 between Brandon and Austin today. So just be careful if you are hitting the highways. That number to call, 204-788-3093. And I am here now with Rinaldo Oliveira, who has worked here for 20 years. He works in process improvement. He moved here originally from Brazil. Hello.
Hi there.
So can you just paint a picture? So we are at Decor Cabinets, a 200,000 square foot facility, 500 employees. What section are we in right now? Because this place is a labyrinth of cabinets.
Exactly. Oh, we are here in assembly department where we put all the parts together in the cabinets. Behind us here, we have the line. We put like the fronts and the drawer boxes. Right in the front of us, you put the special hardware. So yeah, it's the finished product.
So you moved here 20 years ago. What made you want to move to Morden when you came here from Brazil?
Originally, I actually from Winkler.
Oh, Winkler.
Yeah, Winkler. It's very close to Morden. So what came here from Morden is there's the friend that works over here in the house I used to live when I first moved here in 2005. He came actually to our place and offered a job. So I came to Decor, and from there I started to build up over here. Like have lots of friends over there and get into that community, you know.
So there's a lot of manufacturing, a lot of growth economically in the community. What did Decor look like 20 years ago when you worked here versus now? How much has changed?
Well, it's a lot of change. Like being a far over here, I see a lot of things changing. More people came to Decor. Like when you first started over here, like I'll say about 200 people or 200 some. And today is around 500 people coming here. Lots of people come from different countries like Brazil, Philippines, and Germany. So it's a company grow a lot as people and opportunities as well.
So what do you love about, living and working in this part of the province?
I love it over here. Like it's totally different. The culture is different. Like when you come over here to Manitoba, the first impression that I have is the people are very friendly, right? Especially here at Decor, like on the best part of my day was when I walked in. I used to park in the back over there. I walk it in and see all the employees in the morning, talk to them a little bit until I get here to my desk. So I think the best part is people. There's no other.
Lovely.
Well, thanks a lot. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. No soccer.
We'll talk soccer off air. Yeah, cheers.
Good.
Talk soccer off air, Corey, and bring that back into the show later. Just lovely. Corey's on the shop floor talking to one of the employees here at Decor Cabinet. It's interesting, though, him talking about how special the relationships are and the people, because our next story has to do with much of the same. When Brenda Clausen found out CBC was going to be in Morden, she wrote to us actually with a heartwarming story about how a family, in this case from West Africa, has now become her family. And she wasn't kidding. I visited her home last night and learned more about why, despite all of the policies and promises made by governments to support people after they arrive in Canada, it seems the real thing that helps people stay in any community or city is connection. And in this case, Brenda and Ken Clausen's family connection with the Toure family, Anita, Joya, or Joy, and her adorable little kids. Where am I? Whose house is this?
Grandma Brenda's house.
Grandma Brenda's house. Okay, and what's your name?
Leanna.
Leanna, how old are you?
7.
What's your name?
Dodo. Peepa house.
I'm Peepa.
Also known as?
Ken.
JoJo's too, by the way, sitting on Peepaw's lap. Brenda, hello. This is your house.
Yes, it is.
And who's sitting on this couch? Can you introduce yourself? Hello.
Yes, I'm Anita.
Anita, I heard you're Brenda's soul sister, maybe?
Yes.
You guys are like very close in age, is that right?
Yes, we are. 3 weeks difference.
And this is Joy. Hi, Joy.
Hi.
So, Joy, these are your kids.
Yes.
Yes. Tell me how long you lived in Morden.
9 years. We moved here as a refugee with my mom and my younger brother. And when we moved here, we have a lot of sponsor family, the church and some other individual that sponsors. But Ben and Ken, I call them mom and dad. I hate saying Ben and Ken. I call them mom and dad. They're one of the people that was visiting, and I was there when I give birth to my daughter Liana. Actually, Brenda was in the room with me and my mom and another one of the sponsor family. And yeah, I just love them and the way they connect with their kid. And with Ken, it was the reason I feel like I felt attached to the family because growing up, my dad was not really there, but seeing Ken and the girls and the boys, it just make me want to belong, and the way they treat me and the way they welcome me to their family. Why not? Why not have extra mom and dad?
Your kids have obviously, it's spread through the generations because your kids right now are sitting on a couch across from where we're sitting, and they didn't choose to sit with you, Joy. No offense, Mom.
Oh yeah, they would choose grandma and grandpa anytime. Anyway.
Brenda and Ken playing over there. I love this. Now, what's nice is I was calling you Brenda's soul sister just because you're close in age, but you're Joy's mom.
Yes, I am. I'm Joy's mom. We moved here 2016 with my kids, Joy and Elijah. Now we are 5 in number.
Yeah.
We moved here as a refugee. Brenda children, I always call them as my children. And they call me mom.
Yeah. What a beautiful relationship you two families have. So this came about because you signed up. You'd never done it before, and you signed up to sponsor through a church, right?
Yeah, so there was someone else who actually initiated it. When we heard about it, we said, hey, this is something we can do. And we didn't know what our involvement would be. It ended up being we were one of the 5 families who just said we will support them for 1 year and make sure they succeed. But it lasted a lifetime. And we didn't know when they came what faith they would be, right? Because there was a lot of Syrians coming at the time, and we just committed to a family. But it turns out, I think we found out the day after Anita shared with us that she is a Christian, and which is the same faith. I mean,
so you have shared faith.
We have shared faith, and so shared celebrations with Christmas and Easter and all those other things. So we do life together in all the ways a family does.
So for you, when you say where is home, because you've had quite a journey, I understand.
I was born in Sierra Leone. Then I moved to Guinea-Bissau. We used to live in a refugee camp for 28 years to 30 years. Joy was the youngest refugee when we registered in that country. So we have been waiting for us to come to Canada for so many years. Yeah. Joy was 21 years when we moved to Canada.
So where is home for you? How do you identify where home is now, Joy? What do you say when people ask you?
For me, home is where the people I love is. It's where my kids are. I feel Morden is home right now because I'm surrounded by people that care and love me. Home is Morden right now.
Home is Morden right now. Obviously, the connection and the special connection here is critical. But beyond that, there's all kinds of cities and communities that are trying to have people come and stay. What has helped with that?
One, you feel safe. I feel safe in Morden. And people are nice. And we have other families that welcome us, are there for us. We have built good community with the people around this area, and I feel like my kids can go somewhere and they're safe. I don't have to worry or think about what I went through, my kid will go through that. So,
is there a large African community here? I'm just wondering about in terms of also those connections.
Yeah, we do have African Pembina. Actually, we celebrate African Party in December, and we have quite few African people here in this area. Yeah.
But the bigger piece was how you felt welcomed here into Morden.
Yeah, when we moved here, there was not. So I think it was just 3 or 4 families living more there, but that's not the reason we stay. We stay because we felt safe and we have people that love us and surrounded that was willing to help and guide us, and that felt really well. Yeah.
So, what's school like? What grade are you in?
2.
Yeah. Okay. So, how's grade 2? Like, what's your most fun thing to do in grade 2?
Writing.
Oh, a girl after my own heart. I'm getting down here now. Writing. What do you like to write?
So, like, we have a book, and it's called Heartwood Hotel. You have to write and talk about the character, Miss Diggins. She's a queen, and she's a little bit mean.
Oh. Okay. I don't like a mean queen. I love that you like to write. And what about you? We're going to take a picture of you for our CBC website. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Teeth.
Got it. That was a good one, Jojo. Ken, what have you, how has being part of this family from the other side of this enhanced your life?
Wow, in so many ways. With more people, there's just more blessings and more opportunities to love on each other, and they're awesome.
It's been interesting to learn our stories of our histories over time. And support each other in processing that. And it's been very rich.
This is home. This is where I want to be. And especially if you grow up where you never have surrounded by people that love you this much and you finally have it, why do you want to move?
I just have to give God the glory, but what He has done for me. I have life, and I'm here with my kids, my grandchildren. So I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
Thank you, family, all of you I'm speaking to now, for sharing your beautiful story of immigration in Morden. It's been lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Gagu, hop, hop.
You ready for Easter?
Hop, hop, hop.
That bunny's ready for Easter. Here's what you say. Say, this is CBC.
ABC.
Really close. Different network, but really close. That was Jojo, Liana, Joya, and Anita Toure, and Ken and Brenda Clausen. The Clausen's biological kids and Joya's brother, Elijah, by the way, weren't able to be part of the interview, but if you're watching on YouTube, you would have seen many photos of the entire family. Most of them are up on the walls in the Clausen home where we visited last night. Brenda wanted to share her story today as part of our special broadcast from Morden. She says to encourage more people to consider sponsorship or making connections with newcomers, refugees, immigrants, and she wanted to talk about how rewarding all of this can be, and you heard that. Thanks to videographer Prabjot Lote for the beautiful photos from our visit last night. Well, at 10 to 8, we return you to more serious matters into the news of the day. As you've been hearing, our CMP have now confirmed that the second set of remains found in Prairie Green landfill last month are those of Mercedes Myron. Myron was one of 4 Indigenous women who were victims of a serial killer in 2022. And the news comes weeks after the remains of another victim found in the same landfill have been identified as Morgan Harris. Here is more of what Premier Wab Kinew had to say about the latest development. He spoke yesterday.
I want to be very mindful of the fact that one family just found out this news within the last 24 hours, less than the last 24 hours as we speak here right now. And so I want to give them the time to absorb this news. Our language the whole time is a humanitarian search for Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron. Buffalo Woman, I think, was part of a lot of the conversation around the trial and a lot of the work that had happened at the community level. So I'm sure that we'll have more engagement on that from those community voices in the future. I want to spend this time focusing on her family and talking about the work that they've done and what it says to Manitobans, what it says to Canadians, which is, I think, over the past few weeks, I've spoken to a lot of people who may have had different perspectives or not known what to make of this issue along the way, but who today I think by and large feel like it's the right thing that we were able to return these women to their families so they can be memorialized in a proper way. The search proper continues with that same level of detail and that same methodology that we were talking about as part of that. But as you'll remember, and I think everyone here remembers from those briefings with Amna Mackin, our project lead on this, we did expect potentially to be searching throughout 2025, throughout this calendar year. So being in March and having that confirmation because of the good work of the RCMP and the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner and everyone else who's been working on this search along with the civil service, it does show that that effort was really focused and executed well, but most importantly, providing that compassionate news to the families that we're bringing their loved ones home. Today is really about Mercedes Myron and her family. I think it's really significant what was able to take place here. I recognize everyone here has a job to do, and there's always, that desire to push the story forward. I fully respect that. But at the outset of this search, to be able to say that we would return Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron seemed like, at the very least, a really tall order, a tough project to deliver on. And now that we are here, to be able to say that, I just want to acknowledge the leadership and the capacity that the families had to stick to their message and through the ups and downs, ask us as Manitobans and Canadians to come together and do what we can now say we've done. One thing I would like to do in the future is to find a way to honor and acknowledge everyone who worked on this search, from the skid steer operators to the people who were involved in putting together plans, to the search technicians, to the family members. But again, I think those plans to have a tribute to everybody who helped to bring Morgan and Mercedes home, that's for the future.
It really is something, isn't it? I mean, here we are in mid-March. That was Premier Wab Kinew speaking to reporters yesterday. Kinew says it's too soon to say what plans are being made to locate a third victim known as Buffalo Woman. Now, Hilda Anderson-Pierce is chair of the National Family and Survivors Circle. She spoke with CBC's Faith Fundal. She said she hopes the search continues for Buffalo Woman. She also wants changes into how police investigate cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women in the future.
Well, I think, the continued violence that Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit and gender diverse people experience is very real, and as a society, they have to open their eyes and their hearts and their minds as well and be empathetic and recognize that they're part of this fight, fighting the fight for the safety, security, healing and well-being of Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit and gender diverse people, and especially those who are in vulnerable situations, and ensuring that, they're elevating their voices to ensure that safe spaces are created and are accessible 24/7. I do think, that there should be an inquiry launched into the handling of the bodies that have been disposed of in the landfill and the response from the Winnipeg police. They have a major responsibility in this. They had the opportunity to search the landfill and they didn't. They refused to search it. So, I think the community is looking for a response from this new police chief on how things are going to change. If this ever happens again, how will the police respond? How will they uphold the dignity and the rights of Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit and gender diverse people and the families that are impacted?
Hilda, have you had a
Here's
chance
the
yet
chair.
to think about what you'd like to see happen with the search of the Prairie Green landfill? Should it continue? Should the search continue for more victims? Is that the right question to ask?
Absolutely. We still know that, Buffalo Woman has not been identified and her remains have not been located. And when we look at how many missing individuals, they are in Winnipeg and surrounding Manitoba that are vulnerable Indigenous females, I think this clearly indicates that, that Indigenous women's bodies are being disposed of in landfills and that as governments and as Canadians that we have to respond adequately to ensure that this never happens again. And if it does happen again, that there's a response mechanism that is readily available, to uphold the dignity of Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit and gender diverse people.
That is Hilda Anderson-Pierce, the chair of the National Family and Survivors Circle. Assembly Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kyra Wilson, meantime, offering her condolences. She put out a statement. It says, quote, "For far too long, First Nations women have been treated as though they are disposable. We have always said our women are sacred. Mercedes deserved to live a full life surrounded by love and possibility. We will continue to honor her spirit and stand firmly with the Myron family as we work to end violence faced by First Nations women, girls, and Two-Spirit people." That's the end of quote. If you want to read more about the story, please go to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Heather Wells is here with more news updates.
Good morning. Manitoba's finance minister says the NDP government is doing its part to fund education, but some taxpayers in Winnipeg face double-digit increases in school taxes. One of the divisions that is not among those is Winnipeg's largest, Winnipeg School Division. We incorrectly reported the tax increase in that division was 15%. In fact, the tax increase in Winnipeg School Division is 5%, so among the lowest in the city. Adrian Salas says his provincial budget later this week is going to have a big focus on education spending. The City of Winnipeg's largest union has filed a grievance after the mayor said he wants all staff back in the office full time. The city's allowed more than 1,000 to work hybrid schedules since the pandemic. QP 500 President Gord Delbridge says the city is already struggling to hire people, and this will make it worse. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
Winnipeg's -5 and cloudy. Our high today is going to be 2 degrees. It's -6 here in Morden, and we have traffic issues. Corey?
Highway 1 through Brandon westbound. Heard from Damien that it's backed up about 3 kilometers or so. He just saw lines and lines of semis just kind of standing there. Not too sure what the issue is, but I do know Highway 1 from Austin to Brandon right now could be a bit slippery, partly covered conditions according to Manitoba 511. If you have any details on that or anything else, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Corey Funk. Still ahead on the program, our live broadcast from Morden continues. About 50% of Decor Cabinets products go to the United States. That's our location today, Decor Cabinet. We're going to talk to the owner about what tariffs could mean for him and the over 500 employees who work here. We're going to meet another employee after 8 as well as Corey returns to the shop floor. And then we're going to hear about overall economic development in this part of Manitoba. What is the Industrial Incubator Mall? Stay tuned. We'll find out about that and more as our live broadcast continues.
5 perceptive panelists, 5 blockbuster books, 4 days of smart and sassy deliberation and debate, but there can only be one winner. The best book to change the narrative. Hi, I'm Ali Hassan, and I'm hosting Canada's favorite book battle, Canada Reads 2025. One book to change the narrative. All this week on CBC Radio, TV, the Listen app, and CBC Gem. For more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Many seniors are reluctant to move into long-term care, but new models are looking to make that experience better for residents. Some specialists, though, say there is still too much reliance on for-profit care and lots of room for improvement. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. The ceasefire in Gaza is broken. Israel has launched its biggest attack on the territory in 2 months. Israeli fighter jets target Gaza City, one of many sites hit overnight. Palestinian health officials say more than 400 Palestinians have been killed. A senior Hamas commander is also presumed dead. The attacks were ordered by the Israeli government. It blames Hamas for refusing to extend the ceasefire deal. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing is in Jerusalem with the latest.
Wrapped bodies are piled up together in Gaza City. Overhead, the hum of Israeli surveillance drones. We were sleeping, then suddenly woke up on the strike, says Mohammed Badir. He helped pull his neighbors' bodies from the rubble. Realizing he had not seen his own daughter, they went searching. Her body was also recovered. The renewed attacks come as Israel continues to pressure Hamas to agree to an extension to phase 1 of the ceasefire and release more hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Hamas has been holding out to move ahead with phase 2 of talks, as both sides had previously agreed. Danny Danon is Israel's UN ambassador.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home.
Israel released images of its top military and security leaders watching the largest wave of strikes on Gaza in roughly 2 months from the Air Force headquarters in Tel Aviv. Hamas says the strikes expose Israel's true intentions to, quote, spill the blood of innocent civilians, with one official saying the return of war amounts to a death sentence for the remaining hostages. On the ground in Han Yunis, the director of Gaza hospitals pleads for international help. No aid, including fuel, medicine, and equipment, has been allowed to enter Gaza in weeks, making saving the scores of injured people, including children, even harder. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are due to speak on the phone this morning. The U.S. president is expected to pressure his Russian counterpart to agree to the proposed ceasefire in Ukraine. Andrei Sybiha is Ukraine's foreign minister. He is hopeful today's call will mark a turning point in the 3-year-old war.
Now is a time for diplomacy. We do really believe that with the leadership of President Trump, we could achieve long-lasting, just peace.
Trump says there is more work to be done on territory concessions and the control of a nuclear power plant. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada will stand up for its sovereignty. Now he's headed to the Arctic to make that point. Carney is traveling into Iqaluit for talks with Inuit leaders. As Juanita Taylor reports, Arctic security will be a key focus.
That really shows that Arctic security is very vital.
Jeremy Tunraluk, the newly elected president at Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated, representing Nunavut Inuit, is pleased he will be meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney today in Iqaluit.
It is very important that the Prime Minister knows we're in the front lines.
Carney is set to make an announcement on strengthening Canada's sovereignty and security. Inuit Teparit Kanatami President Natan Obid and Nunavut Premier PJ Akeruk will also be there. Earlier this month, Akeruk attended the federal unveiling of the location of 3 military hubs, including Iqaluit, where he said he's glad there's more attention being made to the Arctic, but
time is running out. Considering the jabs about Canada as a 51st state, it is even more urgent for our country to reinforce our presence in the Arctic.
Retired Colonel Pierre LeBlanc is the president of Arctic Security Consultants in Ottawa, advocating for increased security in the north.
So it's important that he does come to Iqaluit because it will be seen by others as a visit by the Prime Minister to the Arctic.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh were also recently in Iqaluit to tout Arctic sovereignty and security. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A federal election call could be just days away, but so far, no political party has managed to find candidates for all 343 ridings. Since Mark Carney became Prime Minister, the Liberals have seen a boost in the polls. But as Rafi Boudjikanian tells us, they still have a long list of ridings with no Liberal candidate.
Are you going to be calling an early election? Prime Minister Mark Carney just after being sworn in, as close as he's come to admitting ballot boxes are in the near future for Canadians.
They certainly should expect to go to the polls before November.
His answer drawing chuckles and smiles from the cabinet ministers standing behind him. The Liberals have received a shot in the arm since it looked like Carney was going to win the leadership race, bouncing in opinion polls from what looked like a sure loss to neck and neck with the Conservatives. But they're still far behind in nominating candidates, 178 ready to go, out of a total 343.
Many MPs before the Liberal leadership contest and before the resignation of Mr. Trudeau were clearly dissatisfied.
Christine de Clercy is a political scientist at Trent University.
It's difficult to recruit candidates when you're not sure if the incumbent is leaving or not.
Since Carney became leader, the party has nominated more than a dozen candidates. Some incumbents who had previously declared they would not run again have also changed their minds. But meanwhile, the Conservatives have at least 258 candidates signed up. Melanie Thomas teaches political science at the University of Calgary.
They've been agitating for an election for months. So I wouldn't be surprised that that kind of organization.
All parties say they will have a full slate for the election. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Inflation is back up in Canada, but it still is within the target for policymakers. One of the reasons prices started rising faster than earlier this year, the GST holiday ended. Anis Haidari has more details.
2.6% in February. That's how much the Consumer Price Index increased by. It's a jump from the month before, so prices went higher faster in February than in January. And while it's higher than that dead center Goldilocks just right 2% number the Bank of Canada likes, it is still within their target range. In particular, Statistics Canada points out the end to the temporary cut on GST and HST spiked inflation because they calculate inflation based on many after-tax prices. That's possibly one reason restaurant food prices contributed the most to inflation speeding up in February. Now, with that inflation ticking up, economist eyes and the Bank of Canada will be watching to see what happens with other economic markers in the coming months, in particular for the central bank's next decisions on interest rates in March. It's not just inflation they're watching, but unemployment and overall economic activity, not to mention tariffs, could significantly change inflation upward in the coming months too. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Seafood industry reps from more than 50 countries are showcasing their products in Boston, and this year, the stakes are high for Canada's seafood sellers. They face tariffs from both the United States and China, and the Seafood Expo will give Canadian producers a chance to explore new markets. Leila Baudouin reports.
A hot dog made from trout, robotic processing technology, just a sample of the thousands of exhibits as seafood industry reps show off their products and make deals.
It goes mainly to Spanish or Portuguese neighborhoods in the U.S. and in the Caribbean.
That's Quint Wickens of Sea Star Seafoods out of Nova Scotia. He produces and packages salt fish for companies around the world. But for Wickens, like many of the Canadian companies here, America, until now, has been his best customer.
Dominican Republic or Barbados or Trinidad, they become more important, with the uncertainty here in the U.S.
Wickens says he's on shaky ground, but hopeful Atlantic Canada's plan to diversify will work. And he's already in talks with new markets. So is Juan Roberts of Triton, Newfoundland.
There's other places in the world that buy what we grow, so we'll get there eventually. It just might take a bit of time.
Roberts was the first person to serve up farmed oysters in Newfoundland, a highly coveted product in the U.S. But he says they're looking further. A way forward, says Newfoundland and Labrador's Minister of Fisheries, Jerry Byrne.
We have had success in developing new markets in different continents.
But it's not out of rough waters yet. Canada, a country of coastlines, this will be a very different fishing season. Leila Baudouin, CBC News, Boston.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Live in Morden, Manitoba.
This is our weld bays here, where we manufacture a lot of our waste handling equipment. So right here is one of our 20-yard luggers that we build for the scrap metal industry.
So I guess in layman's terms, they're like industrial size, like dumpsters, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Industrial size dumpsters. Yeah, I would say we pump out about just shy of 20 containers a day. We manufacture for the city of Winnipeg all of their waste handling equipment, all their bins, and then we service all their equipment as well.
How big of a deal is these small manufacturers to the Morden area?
Oh, I think they're a huge deal. A lot of manufacturers like us and offer and create a lot of jobs within this community as well. Really, we pour back into it with donating our time and efforts into other community initiatives and things like that. So, hi, I'm Kyle Wiebe, and I'm the CEO and owner of Maverick Industries. And you're listening to Information Radio, live from Morden on CBC Radio 1.
Well, we had our pick of spots to go because business is thriving in this part of Manitoba and has for so many years. This Morden, Winkler, Pembina Valley area punches above its weight when it comes to manufacturing specifically, of course, also when it comes to our agricultural industries. So much to talk about and learn. And that's why we're here for Communities in Focus. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or maybe watching on YouTube. And we hope you are because we're going to take you to the shop floor of Decor Cabinet this half hour. Corey Funk is down there. He's going to meet one of the employees here. The CEO of Decor is going to join us as well for an interview. About 50% of Decor cabinets do go to the States, so we will talk about tariffs, but we're also going to talk about the employees that work here. There's some 500 of them. Stay tuned. So we'll hear more about the challenges, but also the successes of this business, and also about how new businesses are born here. What is an incubator, you might be wondering, specifically an industrial incubator mall. It's 25,000 feet of leasable space, and it's a place where new businesses and those developing are really born and can grow. And we're going to hear more about that because Morden's economic development officer is going to be joining us as well. So we have a busy half hour ahead. Right now, before we go to Corey and hear more about your day's weather, let's go to Heather Wells for other news of the day. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Well, polls have just opened in Transcona. People are voting in a provincial by-election, choosing their next MLA to replace Nello Altamare, who died in January. 4 people are in the running. We'll hear who they are coming up. And Canada's inflation rate is on the rise. Statistics Canada just out with numbers this morning. Nationally, inflation jumped to 2.6% last month, up from 1.9%. And in Manitoba, inflation went from 2.7% in January up to 3.5% last month. Analysts say the end of the federal government's 2-month GST holiday was a key factor. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
How's it hitting you in the pocketbook, Manitoba? You can always call us, 788-3205. Well, we are out in Morden, and I'll tell you what, we keep saying that the weather's really different from Winnipeg. It's just a lot snowier here up Highway 3. Morden, in case you've never been to this area, I mean, we're an hour and a half southwest of Winnipeg. They call it the City of Discovery, and today I think it's going to be the City of Melting because we're going to get above zero here. And what's Winnipeg looking like for today, Abby?
Yes, you should be getting above zero there for Morden. +2, that would be the high for that part of the province today. Similar conditions in Winnipeg. The clouds will be hugging the spotlight today. We have that slim chance of light morning flurries this morning that would make its scarce appearance, and then we'll see some light winds warming to 2 degrees later in the day. But for tomorrow, plenty of sunshine in the region.
All right, thank you, Abby. And now let's go to Corey Funk, who's going to tell us what traffic is like. There's been a couple of big issues. Then he's going to slide right into what's happening. Corey is live down on the production floor here at Decor Cabinet. We're up in a boardroom overlooking this to try to get some quiet. So, Corey, first to traffic. What do you know about it?
Yeah, I just got a call from Sarah on the commuter line. Earlier, there was big backups on westbound Highway 1. Through Brandon, but she said actually it involved the 2 semis that were causing the backup. Those semis have now been towed and it is clear, so should be smoother sailing through Brandon, but it is still some slippery conditions on Highway 1 between Austin and Brandon, so look out for that. Give me a call if you have any other updates, 204-788-3093. And I'm here now with Alfredo Magabo here, and just as heads up, we are here it's a 200,000 square foot facility down here. And actually, you can look behind me. It just kind of goes on forever here. You might hear a saw also go on beside. There's lots of wood everywhere. That's all destined to become some sort of cabinetry. And Alfredo Magabo is a supervisor here. Hello. Hello. So you came here about 8 years ago. You're originally from the Philippines, but you're kind of recruited because you were working in Saudi Arabia, right? Yep. So why did you say yes to come all the way here to Morden to work?
Well, the first thing that I moved into Canada because of actually the quality of life. the high opportunity here, and also the culture of here, and also the welcoming.
And when you got here, like I know you're kind of recruited from Decor, so they kind of what kind of supports were there for you here in Morden? As soon as you got here to kind of help you settle in.
Well, actually, when I arrived here from the airport, they actually pick up me there and give me a temporary accommodation. And the next day, they will also give me all the information that I need to get it done. And they give me actually plenty time to to cope this place and work around and everything that to actually familiarize the life here in Canada.
And you're a skilled worker. You're recruited here to supervise a very intense looking line that you showed me. Look very technologically complicated. Yeah. But you could work maybe in a big city or something like that. Why choose to stay here in Morden?
One is actually I have a really great growth here in Decor. So this company is give me a lot of opportunity how to my life get in a high standard actually. And this kind of culture of work actually it's my experience from Saudi Arabia. So I'm very actually interested with this one, which is the Decor has given me the full authority and full actually access with this line actually.
And what do you just love about Morden in general? What do you love about the community outside of work? I know you play some basketball in a Filipino league here. What else do you do? What do you love about the community?
Well, we have actually a big and a huge Filipino community here, and we are enjoying of get together. Like a Filipino, we are very actually sporty things and everything like that one. And we love actually for some of the newest Filipino here, we actually accommodate them and also giving information about the Morden. And actually, Morden is a very perfect time for quality for our family. Actually, I'm a single parents with my 2 kids, and then really actually enjoying this Morden.
That's great. Well, that's Alfredo Magabo. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
And back to you, Marcy.
I got to ask you, Corey, before you throw back to me here. You're talking about a different sport, but what about Ronaldo with soccer? We left that story hanging in the last
know, he
hour.
wants to talk
You
about
talked
soccer.
to another employee.
So yeah, so when he moved here 20 years ago, he kind of got involved in the soccer community, and it's grown a lot since. He's actually got some help from Decor as well. So now he's got a soccer academy that he runs here in Morden with 60 kids, and he's really involved in that. And he's just really psyched with how much the soccer community has grown here. So lots going on.
It's 8:18. We're never going to get all these stories on. There's so much going on in this part of Manitoba. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
So let's bring you back up into the wider issues here. So, of course, we are celebrating manufacturing and talking about it, but we do have to talk about tariffs because what a week it has been. Free trade is starting to become a lot less free. People in Morden and the surrounding area are starting to see the impact. Now, as the threat of more tariffs from the U.S. looms, remember, China is also imposing this 100% tariff specifically on canola oil and oil meal. Now, that starts on Thursday. So just want a moment take you into that world and outside of manufacturing because Jason Johnson was on the show yesterday. He operates a grain farm in Darlingford. That's very near Morden here. It's just a mile away from the Canada-U.S. border. He spoke with guest host Margot Watt on the show, and he said he feels ignored by the provincial and federal governments.
We farm about 2,500 acres, and on any given year, we probably average about 1,000 acres of canola. In the week since this announcement has been made, canola has dropped $2 a bushel. So on my farm, that would mean about an $80,000 loss every year. The canola industry in Canada is huge, on par and even greater than any of steel, auto manufacturing, or aluminum. And what I'm upset about is that so far our government has not acknowledged farmers at all. Dead silence. Where does the Liberals not get any votes? Across the Canadian prairies, particularly from farmers. We have no political pull with the Liberals in any way, shape, or form.
So that is Jason Johnson talking about some of his concerns and also talking about how he has some concerns politically that the leaders, our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney now, of course, aren't giving enough attention to what is, to say the least, a very serious issue that is developing, especially in this part of Manitoba. So we're going to hear more about that in the days ahead. But I do want to return now to our location today. Here in Morden, Stan Pauls is also bracing for the impact of potential tariffs. He owns Decor Cabinets, where we're broadcasting from today. About half of its products go to the States. It is a huge part of the local economy. Every 2 weeks, Decor pays roughly $800,000 in wages to its over 500 employees. Just heard Corey talking with some of them. And Stan is up with us now in the boardroom. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Now, before we turn to the nasty news about tariffs, which I'm sure you are tired of talking
You
about.
promised me, Marcy, I wouldn't have to talk about that.
Just for a minute, I'll have to ask
Okay.
you. I do want to ask you a positive question first. What does it feel like to you to hear your employees talking about working here and the connection to Morden and and that connection to community?
That's the intentionality we try to live out every day, right? Just to hear it, if it feels really good. But like I said to others, I want us to, you've talked to about 3 or 4. I think you could talk to 50, 100, and I'm hoping that they would all say the same thing.
I want to, before we turn to talking tariffs and some of these current challenges, also introduce, because if people are watching on YouTube, they're going to see that you have someone beside you who's also going to be speaking with us about business here in Morden. Jason Dick is with us, Economic Development Officer for the City of Morden. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're in the industrial park here. So obviously Decor is separate big business, has been here for many years. But you actually run something called the Industrial Incubator. Incubator Mall. So it's like 25,000 square feet of leasable space is it for growing companies?
It is for growing in new companies. Basically, anyone looking to try something new or start a new product or a new production line or offer a new service in town. It's a combination of below market rates for rent, flexible terms for leases, and then program support for businesses beyond that with our department. The Morden Community Development Corporation started this about 10 years ago based on the kind of Silicon Valley startup business incubator premise to give innovative companies an extra leg up and an extra chance to get their product to market. And
Very
so
cool.
For an area like ours, which the backbone is manufacturing and agriculture, we figured any chance we can help to support those businesses out of the gate is worth trying.
I want to mention this stat to Stan. The Prairies chapter of the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Group sent data to us. They said there's about 80 companies overall, manufacturers in the Winkler-Morden area overall. It represents 5% of the total in Manitoba, but the population here is about 2%. So, you punch above your weight per capita. Why have you found this is a good place in the province to do business and to grow your business?
I think it's because, there's good work ethic, and I think if there's a community or communities that there's a good competitive spirit, right? And yet it feels really good that I can reach out to anyone else in the business community, and we can sit down and we can talk and we can try to figure out how are we going to continue to grow and make a difference in the world.
Are you having discussions now with that wider community about the
yes.
tariffs? I imagine it must be constant.
Every day. Thank goodness, right?
What's the depth of the concern? What do you do to prepare for something like this?
When we headed into 2025, one of our key words was readiness, to be ready for change. And the world is changing very fast every day. And so how can we anticipate this kind of action that's happening?
So what will you do? What will be the impact of tariffs on Decor if they come into effect? What can you share with us?
Big. It'll be a big impact. Yeah, it definitely has a potential, right? So if the full tariffs go in, you can do the math. Half of our product goes down into the States, so easy $500,000 a month tariff.
I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
Can you find other markets? Markets aren't built overnight, so how do you even prepare?
Well, we have a good relationship with our dealers. We have many of our dealers have called us and said, we're sticking with you, We're going to share some of those costs, those tariff costs, and we just got to be out in front of our people.
In terms of new businesses, Jason, what are you hearing from even some of the newer, the startup businesses and such? Are tariffs on their radar too? Are you getting questions as the economic development officer here?
Absolutely. People are looking for resources and options and just putting basically all hands on deck to try to pivot and to be flexible, as Stan mentioned, to be ready for any possibility. And as we've seen, it's tough to know exactly what's coming and when it's coming and how much. And there's been a lot of back and forth on the American side of things that leaves businesses in this state of uncertainty. And I've heard a lot of business owners say, well, it's not the tariffs that are the problem, it's the uncertainty. We can't plan for it because nothing has been set in stone and it changes every couple of weeks or so. And so people really feel like the rug's been pulled out from under them and they don't have that solid ground to stand on. Because when they can plan, then they can adapt and be ready for it.
Yeah.
But the biggest complaint that I've heard consistently from employers is the fact that because the details are light and the details keep changing, they have trouble planning for what's coming.
When you are talking to your U.S. suppliers, are you making deals to have the tariffs waived or share the costs, or what do you?
Working on sharing the cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're trying to cut your losses
Yeah.
effectively in
Yeah.
half
Mhm.
of what that might be. How does that work? Like, how much of that is relationship, or how much of that is like we have to sign a contract, which might change, frankly, in 4 hours?
The biggest
Who
thing,
knows,
we've
right?
always said it's all about relationships, and that's why we can do what we're doing. Our orders are strong right now in both Canada and the United States, so we feel really, really blessed. Going back to the uncertainty that Jason talked about, for me as a leader and us as a leadership team, we try to isolate our people from that uncertainty. We try to give them confidence. We got to go out there and we're working hard, but we really try to make inside Decor a safe place, right? We don't have room for polarization and he said, she said, all those conversations. We just don't do that here.
Have you gone through times, obviously not exactly like this, but in the past, where you've sort of been thinking, like, where am I going to find markets? What will I do? Or maybe I might have to resort to layoffs.
Yeah, we don't do layoffs here at all possible, right? And so we're grateful if it needs to go there, we can have the work share. But in times past, we don't have to think back many years, right? And what we're going to be hit with.
COVID,
and at that time, COVID, and at that time we said, this has to be a place where we don't talk about are we anti, are we whatever. At Decor, we're just going to be.
You mean in terms of businesses being shut down because of the government decisions? You tried to insulate
exactly.
everything from that.
And keeping our people, we don't talk about that at work. After work, you're going to have all kinds of stuff. You're going to be fighting with your neighbor, but at work, we're going to respect each other as human beings, right? We're going to be kind. Right, that's what we're going to do.
With the push to buy Canadian, there's a push to buy Canadian lately, right? I understand it's not necessarily something that you're needing to take advantage of. Why is that?
No, and actually, am I speaking for myself or the company? I don't think I'm not really. I'm a proud Canadian and a proud Manitoban, right? But I don't think I expect people to buy from me because of my location. They should buy from me because I'm good value. We're a good company. We produce quality cabinets. We have integrity. We say what we do. We do what we say. That's why you should buy from me. And I can't say, hey, let's buy from me because I'm a Canadian, when we need to go across the line. We're friends. We're human, across the line. So. Yeah.
I wonder, Jason, how the business community gives back in Morden. We're hearing about this all over town. I know right now specifically there's a relationship with some in the overall growth of the city, but it's resulted in a new college program, maybe?
Absolutely. One of the great things about Morden is the fact that the business community plays such an active role in community life, not just in employment, but in every aspect of community life. And in every community event, we have people sponsoring. We wouldn't be able to do the sports activities or the events we have at the Access Event Center without their support. And in particular, new initiatives that we try to put forward, and charitable initiatives as well. But the one that you mentioned on the educational front is one that I'm particularly excited about, and one that without business support and input and sponsorship, we wouldn't be able to
And what's the program?
deliver. It's a multifaceted educational initiative involving a creation of a training center for production workers in the manufacturing sector, as well as for IT workers. So for the first time, Morden's going to be hosting a campus from the Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology.
Very cool.
And Valley Fiber, a major employer in the region, has sponsored that program to help take it to the next level. So that initiative is going to be powered by Valley Fiber, which allows us to really offer new educational programming to youth in this area. It's a 1-year diploma program with a 4-month practicum at the other end of it. And it's a way to keep our youth and retain our talent and support our businesses even further. So that's a kind of reciprocal relationship where when the businesses give back, we're able to provide programming that supports their employment.
Thank you both. To brighter days to both of you, and thanks so much for having CBC here with you in Morden and to Decor. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. That is Jason Dick, Economic Development Officer for the City of Morden, and Stan Pauls, who owns Decor Cabinet here in Morden's Industrial Park. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:31, it is -5. A really pleasant day on the way. Clouds with a high of 2. A range of emotions is how an MMIWG advocate describes her feelings after hearing the remains of Mercedes Myron had been identified. Police in the province making that announcement yesterday. Sandra Delaron says there was vindication, but she also thought about how the families and community were told a search of Prairie Green landfill could not be done.
A sense of why did we have to wait 2.5 years, and also a sense of we knew it could be done, and of course we see that today it can be done.
Earlier this month, the province announced the remains of Morgan Harris had also been identified after being recovered at the landfill. Now, an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls says police have to be held accountable for their decision to not search the landfill. Hilda Anderson-Pierce says the searchers' success in finding the remains of both Harris and Myron proves police were wrong. She says the identification of Myron's remains yesterday affects many.
This is very heartbreaking news for the entire community, especially the families who are impacted and those who are, waiting for their loved ones to come home.
Anderson-Pierce wants Winnipeg's new police chief to explain how the process for handling cases involving missing vulnerable people will change, and she wants an inquiry held to make sure this never happens again. Voting is now underway in Transcona, where people are electing their next MLA. It is by-election day, and 4 people are vying to represent the East Winnipeg constituency. CBC's Ian Fraze sets up the race.
The death of former NDP MLA Nello Altomar led to this by-election today in Transcona. He died in January after a battle with cancer. The NDP is hoping another educator will replace Altomar, a former school principal. Shannon Corbett has worked as a vice principal in the area. The PC candidate is former city councillor Sean Nason. He served the Transcona ward for 1 term beginning in 2018. The Manitoba Liberals selected public servant Brad Boudreau as its candidate. Boudreau works as an advisor for the federal Crown Indigenous Relations Minister, and Susan Ock, a former Olympic speed skater, is running as an independent. Voting closes tonight at 8 p.m. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The City of Winnipeg's largest union has filed a grievance after the mayor said he wants all staff back in the office full-time. The city has allowed more than 1,000 employees to work hybrid schedules since the pandemic. On Friday, Mayor Scott Gillingham told business leaders he wants all of them in the office 5 days a week. QP 500 President Gord Delbert says the city's already struggling to hire people, and this will make it worse.
It's a bad idea. The mayor needs to do his homework on this one. Is this going to be cost effective? Is this going to affect recruitment and retention? This is a cost savings measure. Who's going to bear that cost?
Gillingham maintains a return to the office will make public service more accountable to the public and help businesses in the city's downtown. The executive director of Bike Winnipeg says changes made to the rules of the road do not go far enough. Yesterday, the province announced plans to introduce a law ordering drivers to stay 1 meter away from cyclists. Mark Coho says that might work in areas where vehicles are driving 30 kilometers an hour, but is too close for higher speeds.
We're a little concerned that it's pretty minimalist in what it's asking for, and we don't think really it's enough. So certainly, I think we'd be happier if it was 1.5 meters, at least for anything over 50 kilometers an hour.
The province says the 1 meter distance brings us in line with other jurisdictions. Coho says instead of following other provinces, we should be leading. And Canada's inflation rate is on the rise. Statistics Canada this morning says inflation jumped nationally to 2.6% last month, up from 1.9% in January. And in Manitoba, inflation went from 2.7% in January up to 3.5% last month. Analysts say the end of the federal government's 2-month GST holiday was a key factor behind the sudden surge in consumer prices. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather. Well, with the last quick look at the traffic situation, Corey.
Yeah, things have cleared up in Brandon there. There was a bit of a backup on Highway 1 West, but slippery conditions still between Austin and Brandon, so be careful. If you see anything else, though, you can always, give us a call tomorrow, 204-788-3093.
Quick weather, Abby?
Brandon, snow and the forecast today, just a bit of snow. The southern part will be cloudy, a slight chance of snow. We're going to see temperatures warm to +2 in some regions, and most of the regions will stay around -2.
All right, thanks very much, Abby. Big thanks to our live team, Corey Funk, as well as Prabjot Lote out here in Morden with us, as well as Leif Larson, Nelly Gonzalez, Abby Adiemi, Kevin Ipatebo, all back at CBC Manitoba, and to Chidi Akuma, who also contributed to this morning's program. Huge thanks to Heidi Peters, who let us in early here at Decor and helped us out through the morning, as well to Stan Pauls, who let this be our community studio for today out in Morden. And just big thanks to the community and all of our guests. We can never share every story, but we're sure going to try to get more because we're still out here in this part of Manitoba for the next couple of days. Thursday, we're coming to you live from Winkler, which, as you may know, is just 7 kilometers up Highway 3. So that's where we're heading next. Tomorrow, Margot Watt will be back in guest hosting Information Radio, so make sure you tune in to CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thank you for listening to our show live from Morden. Take care. Be well, Manitoba.